When a billionaire's 6-year-old daughters found a homeless woman freezing to death on a train platform, he had no idea they were about to force him into the most impossible decision of his life. What started as one act of kindness spiraled into secrets, lies, and a dangerous past that threatened to destroy everything he'd built. But sometimes the person who saves you is the one everyone else walked past without a second glance. Stay until the end to see how this unfolds, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The wind cut through Platform 7 like broken glass. Elena Brooks pressed herself tighter against the concrete pillar, trying to disappear into its shadow. Her bare feet had gone numb an hour ago, maybe 2, she'd lost track, and the thin jacket someone had abandoned in a trash can last week barely covered her shoulders. Snow swirled through the open-air station in violent gusts, and every breath felt like swallowing ice. She was 30 years old and dying slowly on a train platform. Not the dramatic kind of dying. Nothing anyone would notice. Just the quiet kind where your body gives up piece by piece while the world rushes past, and nobody stops because stopping means acknowledging what they're seeing, and acknowledging it means deciding whether to care. Elena had stopped expecting anyone to care months ago. "Daddy, wait!" The child's voice barely registered at first. Elena had learned to tune out the sounds of normal life. Families laughing, couples arguing, kids complaining about homework. All those ordinary problems that used to be her problems too. Back when she had an apartment and a job and a future that didn't involve counting the hours until hypothermia set in. "Ava, we're going to miss the car. Come on!" "But Daddy, look!" Elena forced her eyes open, squinting against the snow. 2 small figures stood a few feet away, identical in their expensive pink coats and matching boots. Twins, maybe 6 years old, both staring directly at her with the kind of unfiltered curiosity that adults train themselves to suppress. "Girls, I said—" The man's voice stopped mid-sentence. Elena wanted to close her eyes again, to pretend she didn't exist until they left. She'd gotten good at that. But something about the way the girls were looking at her, not with pity or disgust, just honest concern, kept her frozen in place. The man stepped closer. Tall. Dark coat that probably cost more than Elena's last 3 months of rent combined. She could smell his cologne even through the snow, something woody and expensive that reminded her of the life she used to have, back when she wore nice clothes and worried about things like whether her students would like the lesson plan she'd stayed up late creating. "I apologize," he said quietly. "We didn't mean to disturb you." His voice was careful, polite, the kind of polite that came from good upbringing, not genuine warmth. Elena had heard that tone before. From the shelter volunteers who handed out meals with surgical gloves on, from the police officers who moved her along from storefront doorways, from everyone who wanted credit for acknowledging her existence without actually having to deal with the reality of it. "It's fine," she managed. Her voice came out rough, barely recognizable. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," one of the twins said flatly. "You don't have shoes." "Chloe," the man said, a warning in his tone. "But she doesn't, Daddy. And it's snowing. Her feet are going to freeze off." The other twin, Ava apparently, nodded seriously. "Miss Rodriguez said frostbite makes your toes turn black and fall off. Is that true?" Elena almost laughed. Would have laughed if her chest didn't hurt so much. "I don't know. Haven't lost any yet." "Come on, girls." The man's hand moved to guide them away. "We need to go." "No." Chloe planted her feet, surprisingly stubborn for such a small person. "We can't just leave her here." "Sweetheart, it's complicated. You always say that when you don't want to explain something." The man's jaw tightened. Elena could see him struggling, could practically watch the internal debate happening behind his eyes. She'd seen it 100 times before. Good people wanting to help but not wanting to get involved, looking for the exit that let them feel okay about walking away. "Look," Elena said, saving him the trouble. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm really fine. You should get your kids somewhere warm. See? She said she's fine." But the man didn't sound convinced, and he didn't move. Ava tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, she's shaking." "I know. Like, really shaking. Like when Chloe had that fever and we had to go to the hospital." "I know, baby." "So we should help her, right? That's what Mommy would have done." The change in the man's expression was instant and heartbreaking. His whole face seemed to collapse inward for just a second before he caught himself, rebuilding whatever walls kept him functional. Elena recognized that look too. Grief, the kind that ambushed you in random moments and left you struggling to remember how to breathe. Your mom, he cleared his throat. Your mom would have wanted to help everyone, but it's not that simple. Why not? Because, he ran a hand through his hair, snow collecting on his shoulders. Because I don't know this person. Because it's late. Because getting involved in strangers' lives is complicated and potentially dangerous and... She's not dangerous, Chloe interrupted. She's scared. Elena flinched. The observation was too accurate, too sharp. She looked away, focusing on the departure board overhead, the endless scroll of trains going to places she'd never see. Please, Daddy. Ava's voice had gone soft now, pleading. Just one meal. You always say we should help people when we can. You give money to charity all the time. That's different. How? It just is. But enough. The word came out sharper than he probably intended. Both girls fell silent, and Elena watched something crumble in their expressions. Not quite crying, but close. The look kids got when they realized their parents weren't the heroes they thought they were. The man noticed too. His shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, Elena said quietly. You should go. I didn't mean to cause problems. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Elena had to fight the urge to turn away. She knew what he was seeing. The dirt under her fingernails, the bruises on her feet, the way her hands shook from more than just cold, the visible evidence of exactly how far someone could fall when the safety nets failed. When did you last eat? He asked. I don't need... When? Elena's throat closed up. She tried to remember. Yesterday? The day before? The shelter had run out of dinner portions, and the soup kitchen near the library didn't open on Wednesdays, and someone had stolen her backpack with the granola bars she'd been rationing. A while, she admitted. The man pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. There's a car coming. It'll be here in 3 minutes. What? No, I can't. One meal, he said firmly. One warm meal, shower if you want it, and a safe place to sleep for the night. Tomorrow morning, I'll have my driver take you anywhere in the city you want to go. No strings, no expectations. Elena stared at him. Why? Because my daughters are right. He glanced down at the twins who were watching with barely contained hope. And because I'm tired of explaining to them why we can't help people when we obviously can. I don't want charity. Good. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering basic human decency, which shouldn't be rare but apparently is. He checked his phone again. 2 minutes. You can refuse and stay here and I'll respect that choice, but I'm asking you to accept. The twins looked up at her with identical expressions of desperate optimism. Elena had survived the last 4 months by trusting no one, by keeping her head down and her expectations lower, by understanding that people who offered help usually wanted something in return, and whatever they wanted was never worth the price. But she was so cold, so hungry, so tired of fighting just to make it through another night. Just tonight, she heard herself say. Just one night. Chloe grabbed her sister's hand, grinning. Ava looked like she might cry from relief. The man just nodded. Okay. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, sleek and expensive and completely out of place in Elena's world. The driver stepped out, took one look at her, and kept his expression perfectly neutral, professional, paid to not react. Mr. Bennett, he said with a slight nod. Bennett. So that was the man's name. Thank you, Marcus. Nathan Bennett opened the back door, ushering his daughters inside. They scrambled in, making room on the heated leather seats. Elena stood frozen on the platform. This was insane. Getting into a stranger's car, going to his house. Every survival instinct she'd developed screamed that this was how horror stories started. But she was already living a horror story. At least this one came with heated seats. She climbed in. The door closed behind her, sealing out the wind and snow and the platform that had been her bedroom for the past week. The sudden warmth made her skin prickle painfully as circulation tried to return to her frozen limbs. Chloe pressed something into her hands, a scarf, soft and clean and still warm from being wrapped around the girl's neck. Here, she whispered, you need it more than me. Elena's eyes burned. She wrapped the scarf around her shoulders and tried very hard not to fall apart in front of these children who'd somehow convinced their father to rescue a stranger. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for increasingly expensive suburbs. Elena watched through the window as the houses grew larger and farther apart, protected by gates and walls and the kind of security that money bought. This was a different world from the shelters and soup kitchens and train stations that had become her reality. Nathan Bennett sat in the front passenger seat, occasionally glancing back at his daughters, who had fallen into whispered conversation. Making plans, probably. Plotting whatever 6-year-olds plotted when they'd successfully staged an intervention in their father's life. Elena studied the back of his head, trying to figure out what kind of man he was. Rich, obviously. Powerful, probably. You didn't get this wealthy without knowing how to command a room, but there was something else there, too. Something in the way he'd looked when Ava mentioned their mother. A crack in the armor. Proof that money didn't actually solve everything, no matter what people believed. The car turned through iron gates into what Elena could only describe as an estate. Not a house. An estate. The kind of place that had a name. 3 stories of stone and windows, lit up against the night sky like something from a movie. "Holy shit," she breathed, then immediately clapped a hand over her mouth. "Sorry, I didn't mean the girls. We've heard worse," Ava said matter-of-factly. "Daddy said the F word when he dropped his laptop in the pool." Ava: "You did, and then you said it again when you realized it wasn't backed up." Nathan sighed. "Can we not?" The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Marcus opened the doors and the twins tumbled out, grabbing Elena's hands before she could change her mind about this entire situation. "Come on," Chloe urged. "Mrs. Chen probably made dinner already. She always makes extra." Elena let herself be pulled toward the entrance, acutely aware of how she must look against the backdrop of this place. Homeless, dirty, completely out of her depth. The front door opened before they reached it. An older Asian woman appeared, took one look at Elena, and her expression shifted through surprise, concern, and finally settled on something that looked almost like approval. "Mr. Bennett," she said carefully, "I wasn't aware we were expecting a guest." "Last-minute decision, Mrs. Chen. This is—" He paused, and Elena realized he'd never actually asked her name. "Elena," she supplied quietly. "Elena Brooks. Miss Brooks will be staying in the guest house tonight. She'll need a shower, clean clothes, and dinner. Can you arrange that?" If Mrs. Chen had opinions about homeless strangers appearing at dinner time, she kept them to herself. "Of course. Girls, why don't you show Miss Brooks to the guest cottage while I prepare a room?" "Can we eat together?" Chloe asked. "All of us?" Nathan hesitated. Elena could see him trying to find a polite way to refuse, to maintain whatever boundaries he thought this situation needed. "Please, Daddy, we never eat together anymore." Another crack in the armor. Nathan's resistance crumbled visibly. "Fine. 30 minutes. That gives Ms. Brooks time to clean up and gives me time to make some calls." He disappeared into the house before anyone could argue. Mrs. Chen gave Elena a look that was hard to read. Not quite sympathy, not quite suspicion. Something in between. "This way," she said gently. "The guest cottage is around back." The twins led the way through grounds that seemed to go on forever. Gardens, even in winter. A swimming pool covered for the season. What looked like a tennis court in the distance. Elena had never felt more out of place in her life. The guest cottage turned out to be larger than the apartment she'd lost. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, bathroom with a shower that probably cost more than she used to make in a month. Everything clean and modern and completely untouched. "No one stayed here in over a year," Mrs. Chen said, reading Elena's expression. "Not since—" She stopped herself. "I'll bring clothes and toiletries. Take your time." She left, and Elena stood in the middle of the cottage, still wearing Chloe's scarf, still not entirely sure this wasn't some kind of elaborate dream brought on by hypothermia. The shower was almost painful at first, the hot water shocking against skin that had forgotten what warmth felt like. Elena stood under the spray until it ran clear, washing away weeks of grime and shame and exhaustion. Someone had left expensive shampoo, conditioner, body wash, the kind of luxuries that felt obscene when you'd been using hand soap in public restroom sinks. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel softer than anything she'd owned in months, she found clothes laid out on the bed. Jeans, a sweater, socks, even underwear still in the package, all in approximately her size. Mrs. Chen worked fast. Elena dressed slowly, her hands shaking again, but this time from emotion rather than cold. When was the last time she'd worn clean clothes that fit? When was the last time she'd felt human? A knock at the door. "Ms. Brooks, dinner is ready." The walk back to the main house felt surreal. Elena followed Mrs. Chen through a side entrance, down a hallway lined with artwork that was probably worth more than Elena would earn in a lifetime, into a dining room that could seat 20 but was set for 4. The twins were already there, freshly washed and changed into pajamas, bouncing in their seats with barely contained energy. Nathan stood by the window, phone still in hand, looking like a man who'd made a decision he wasn't entirely comfortable with, but planned to see through anyway. "Sit anywhere," he said without looking up. Mrs. Chen made pot roast. Elena chose a seat, feeling like an imposter. The table was set with actual china, crystal glasses, silver that caught the light. This wasn't how normal people ate dinner. This was how rich people performed the ritual of eating. Mrs. Chen brought out food: pot roast, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, bread that was still steaming, enough to feed twice this many people. Elena's stomach cramped at the sight of it. "Dig in," Nathan said, finally pocketing his phone. The twins didn't need to be told twice. They grabbed serving spoons and started loading their plates with the efficiency of children who'd been taught proper table manners, but hadn't quite mastered portion control. Elena moved slower, taking small amounts of everything, trying not to look desperate even though she wanted to grab the entire pot and run. The first bite nearly made her cry. Real food, hot food, food that wasn't stale bread or watered-down soup or whatever she could find in dumpsters behind restaurants. "It's good, right?" Ava said. "Mrs. Chen makes the best pot roast ever." "It's amazing," Elena managed. "Thank you." She ate carefully, forcing herself to go slow, even though every instinct screamed to eat as much as possible as fast as possible before someone took it away. That was the thing about hunger. It made you frantic animal, stripped away all the civilized layers until you were just a body that needed fuel. "So," Nathan said after a long silence, "how long have you been out there?" Elena's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Does it matter?" "I'm just trying to understand the situation." "The situation is I was homeless and cold and your daughters were kind enough to notice. That's all you need to understand. That's not—" "Daddy's bad at conversations," Chloe interrupted. "He always asks questions like a lawyer." "I am a lawyer," Nathan pointed out. "See? Told you." Despite everything, Elena felt her mouth twitch toward a smile. The twins had a way of cutting through tension without even trying. "I wasn't always like this," she found herself saying. "I had a job, an apartment, a normal life." "What happened?" Ava asked. "Ava, that's rude," Nathan started. "It's okay." Elena set down her fork, appetite fading despite the hunger still gnawing at her. "I was engaged. He made some bad choices. Really bad choices. Gambling first, then worse things to try to cover the gambling debts. He used my credit, my name, forged my signature on loans. By the time I figured out what was happening, I was buried in debt I didn't create, and he was gone." "Gone?" Chloe's eyes were wide. "Just disappeared one day. Left me with everything, the debts, the angry collectors, the police questions. I tried to fix it. Hired a lawyer, filed reports, did everything right. But proving you're a victim of financial fraud takes time, and meanwhile the bills keep coming. Lost my apartment, lost my job when the school found out about the police investigation. They said it was a budget cut, but we all knew, lost everything." The room had gone quiet. Even the twins had stopped eating, staring at her with something that looked like understanding far beyond their years. "That's not fair," Ava said finally. "No," Elena agreed. "It's not." Nathan was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "You filed a police report?" "For all the good it did. Victor was smart, covered his tracks well, and I looked like either an accomplice or an idiot, depending on who you asked." "Victor Hale?" Elena's head snapped up. "How do you—" "I know the name. His father used to run in certain business circles before the SEC came calling. Apple didn't fall far from that tree, apparently." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're not an idiot. And you're not an accomplice. You're a victim of someone who knew exactly how to exploit trust." Something in Elena's chest cracked at the matter-of-fact way he said it. No judgment, no doubt, just certainty. Well, she said quietly, victim or not, I still ended up on that platform. But now you're here, Chloe pointed out. So it's better. For tonight, anyway. Why just tonight? Ava frowned. You could stay longer. Ava, Nathan warned, but we have the whole guest house, and it's just sitting there empty, and Elena's nice. You've known her for 2 hours. So? We knew Mrs. Chen was nice in 2 hours, and she's been here forever. That's different. How? Nathan looked like he was seriously reconsidering this entire evening. It just is. You always say that when you don't have a good answer. I'm starting to regret teaching you critical thinking skills. Elena watched the exchange with something like wonder. When was the last time she'd seen a family that actually talked to each other? That argued and teased and functioned like people who genuinely cared? Her own family had fallen apart years ago, scattered across the country, connected only by obligatory holiday phone calls that grew shorter every year. What did you teach? Nathan asked, clearly trying to redirect the conversation. Before. Middle school art mostly. Some high school classes when they needed coverage. Did you like it? I loved it. The words came out more intensely than she intended. I loved seeing kids who thought they couldn't draw suddenly figure out perspective. Loved the quiet ones who came alive when you gave them charcoal and paper. Loved all of it. Why art? Elena shrugged. Because everyone told me it was impractical. Because my parents wanted me to be an accountant or a nurse or something useful. Because making something beautiful from nothing felt like magic, and I wanted to share that magic. That's cool, Chloe said. We do art in school, but our teacher mostly just gives us worksheets to color. That's not art, Elena said automatically. That's just following directions. That's what I said, Chloe looked triumphant. But Miss Anderson says I have attitude problems. Shocking, Nathan muttered. They finished dinner in more comfortable silence. The twins asked Elena questions about the kinds of art she'd taught, and Elena found herself relaxing despite everything, talking about techniques and projects and the kid who'd accidentally glued his hand to a sculpture and panicked until she'd calmly explained how to use warm water to dissolve the bond. Mrs. Chen cleared the plates and brought out dessert, chocolate cake that made the twins cheer and made Elena's heart hurt, because this was normal for them, this abundance, while she'd been eating food bank donations and calling it lucky. Can Elena put us to bed? Ava asked as they finished. You always just say goodnight from the door. Nathan flinched. That's not... I don't just... You kind of do, Daddy. He looked at Elena, something complicated in his expression. You don't have to. I don't mind, Elena said, surprising herself. If it's okay. Please. Both twins turned identical pleading eyes on their father. Fine. But after that, straight to sleep, no negotiating. We never negotiate, Chloe said innocently. You're negotiating right now. The twins' bedroom turned out to be 2 separate rooms connected by a shared bathroom, each decorated in explosions of pink and purple that somehow worked. Stuffed animals covered every surface. Art supplies spilled out of bins. Books stacked on shelves and nightstands in the floor. Sorry it's messy, Ava said, though she didn't sound particularly sorry. Mrs. Chen says we're tornado. Tornadoes, Elena corrected automatically. Plural. That's what I said. Elena helped them brush their teeth, break up an argument over which toothpaste flavor was superior, and navigate the complex bedtime routine that apparently involved specific stuffed animals arranged in specific orders. Our mom used to read to us, Chloe said as Elena tucked her in. Every night, different voices for all the characters. Your dad doesn't read to you? He tried for a while, but then he started working more and it made him sad, and now he just says goodnight from the hallway. Elena's heart twisted. I'm sure he's doing his best. Probably, but his best got kind of worse after Mommy died. There wasn't really a good response to that. Elena smoothed Chloe's hair back, the gesture automatic, maternal in a way she hadn't expected. You're nice, Chloe said sleepily. I hope you stay. Just tonight, remember? We'll see. And then, with the confidence of children who believed they could change the world through sheer force of will, were very persuasive. Elena kissed her forehead without thinking about it, then froze, worried she'd overstepped. But Chloe just smiled and closed her eyes. Ava was already asleep when Elena checked on her, curled around a stuffed rabbit that had clearly seen better days. Elena pulled the blanket up, turned off the light, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching these two little girls who'd somehow decided she was worth saving. Nathan was waiting in the hallway when she emerged. He looked different in the dim light. Less billionaire, more tired father trying to figure out how he'd ended up here. "They like you," he said quietly. "I'm new and interesting. Give it a week, they'll be sick of me. They don't like anyone. I've hired 6 nannies in the past year. The longest any of them lasted was 3 weeks before the girls staged a revolt. I'm not a nanny." "I know. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed habitual when he was uncomfortable. "Thank you for being kind to them. You didn't have to. They were kind to me first. They were. Against my better judgment, apparently." Elena studied him. "You really didn't want to help me. It's not that I didn't want to, it's that I—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I don't trust easily. My wife died, and suddenly everyone wanted something from me. Access to my network, money for their causes, introductions to investors. Everyone had an angle. Everyone wanted a piece of what I'd built. So yes, when my daughters found a homeless woman at a train station, my first instinct was to protect them, not to help you. I'm not proud of that. But I'm not going to pretend otherwise." The honesty was startling. Most people would have just lied, said something noble about wanting to help. Most people are full of shit. Despite everything, Elena laughed. "Fair." They stood in the hallway, the silence stretching but not quite uncomfortable. Downstairs, a clock chimed 10. Outside, snow continued falling, covering the world in white. "The guest house is yours for tonight," Nathan said finally. "Tomorrow, Marcus can take you wherever you need to go, or—" He hesitated. "Or we can talk about other options." "What kind of options?" "I don't know yet. I'm making this up as I go." He met her eyes. "But my daughters are right about one thing. I have resources I'm not using, space that's sitting empty, money that's just accumulating. If there's a way to help that doesn't feel like charity, maybe we can figure it out." Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to protect herself from the inevitable disappointment when this turned out to be temporary, conditional, just another thing that would fall apart. But she was so tired of protecting herself, so tired of survival being the only goal. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Tomorrow. We can talk tomorrow." Nathan nodded. "Get some rest, Elena. You're safe here." The words shouldn't have meant as much as they did. But as Elena walked back to the guest cottage through snow that sparkled under landscape lights, she realized she believed him. For the first time in months, she believed she might actually be safe. The cottage was warm when she entered, Mrs. Chen having apparently turned on the heat while they were at dinner. Elena locked the door out of habit, then stood in the middle of the living room, trying to process the fact that this was real. She had a bed tonight, a real bed, with clean sheets and a door that locked and heat that worked. She had eaten dinner, real food, with people who'd talked to her like she was human, not invisible. She had showered, washed away the grime and the shame and the endless cold. Tomorrow, everything might fall apart. Tomorrow, Nathan might change his mind, or the twins might lose interest, or reality might reassert itself in all its cruel practicality. But tonight, she was safe. Elena pulled Chloe's scarf from where she'd draped it over a chair, held it against her face, and finally let herself cry. Not sad tears, not exactly happy tears, just release. The kind of crying that came when you stopped running long enough to feel everything you'd been holding back. She cried until she was empty, until the shaking stopped, until exhaustion took over. Then she climbed into the softest bed she'd touched in months, pulled the covers up to her chin, and slept without dreaming for the first time since Victor had disappeared and taken her entire life with him. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside the main house, Nathan stood at his bedroom window, looking out at the guest cottage and wondering what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. His phone buzzed, a text from his assistant. "Saw the security footage. Want me to run a background check?" Nathan stared at the message. The smart thing would be to say yes. To protect his daughters, his home, his carefully controlled life. To make sure Elena Brooks was exactly who she claimed to be before letting her anywhere near his family. But he'd spent 2 years being smart, 2 years being careful, 2 years building walls and vetting everyone and trusting no one. And his daughters had become hollow versions of themselves in the process. He deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow would bring complications. Tomorrow would require decisions and plans and all the careful thinking he'd built his fortune on. But tonight, 2 little girls were sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. And that, Nathan decided, was enough. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the disorienting sensation of not knowing where she was. For a terrible moment, panic seized her. Had someone moved her while she slept? Had she passed out somewhere dangerous? Then memory returned. The platform, the twins, Nathan Bennett and his enormous house, and the guest cottage that was nicer than anywhere she'd lived even before everything fell apart. She sat up slowly, her body aching in ways that had nothing to do with the comfortable mattress. Months of sleeping on concrete and park benches had left her muscles permanently tense, her back a constant knot of pain. One night in a real bed wasn't going to fix that. Her phone, the cheap prepaid one she'd managed to keep charged at library outlets, said it was almost 9. She'd slept for nearly 10 hours. When was the last time that had happened? Someone had left a note under the door. Elena picked it up, recognizing Mrs. Chen's precise handwriting. Breakfast in the main house kitchen whenever you're ready. Take your time. The girls are at school until 3:30. School. Right. Normal children went to school on weekday mornings. Elena had lost track of what day it was weeks ago. Tuesday? Wednesday? They all blended together when your only schedule was figuring out which shelter had open beds and which soup kitchen served on which days. She showered again, unable to resist the luxury of hot water that didn't run out after 3 minutes. Found the same clothes from last night clean and folded on the bathroom counter. Mrs. Chen must have come by while Elena was sleeping. The efficiency was unsettling. Elena wasn't used to people taking care of her. The walk to the main house felt different in daylight. Less magical, more real. She could see the scope of the property now. The manicured gardens, the fountain that wasn't running because of winter, the 3-car garage with doors closed against the cold. This wasn't just wealth. This was generational money, the kind that bought security and options and futures. The kind Elena had never had, even before Victor. Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen when Elena entered, chopping vegetables with the precision of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. The room smelled like coffee and something baking. "Good morning," the older woman said without looking up. "Coffee's fresh. Mugs in the cabinet above the machine." "Thank you." Elena poured herself a cup, added cream from a container that was actually cream, not the powdered stuff from shelter pantries. The first sip was almost painful in its perfection. "Mr. Bennett is in his office," Mrs. Chen continued. "He said to tell you he'd like to speak with you when you're ready. No rush." "Is he always this formal?" "Always." Mrs. Chen's knife work didn't pause. Even when the girls were babies and he was running on 2 hours of sleep, he'd still say things like, "when you have a moment," instead of just asking for help. "Sounds exhausting." "You have no idea." But there was fondness in her voice. "Scrambled eggs, okay? I'm making lunch prep anyway." Elena's stomach growled in response. "I don't want to be any trouble." "You're not trouble. You're just someone who needs breakfast." Mrs. Chen finally looked up, her expression kind but assessing. "The girls talked about nothing but you this morning. Apparently you're the best thing that's happened to them in months." "They don't know me." "They know you stopped and talked to them instead of treating them like accessories. You'd be surprised how rare that is in their world." Elena thought about that while Mrs. Chen cooked. The twins had everything money could buy, but they were still lonely. Still looking for someone who saw them as people instead of the billionaire's daughters. Still missing their mother. The eggs were perfect. Elena ate slowly, savoring every bite, while Mrs. Chen worked around her in comfortable silence. It reminded Elena of her grandmother's kitchen, back when she was small and the world felt safe, before college debt and bad relationships and the long slide into survival mode. "He's a good man," Mrs. Chen said suddenly. "Mr. Bennett, in case you're wondering, I wasn't..." Everyone wonders. Rich man, young widow, brings home a stranger. The assumptions write themselves. She scraped vegetables into a container. "But he really is trying to do the right thing. He's just not sure what that is anymore." Elena set down her fork. "His wife. What happened?" Car accident. Black ice on the highway, 2 days after New Year's. She was coming home from her sister's place upstate. Mrs. Chen's hands stilled. Died on impact. The girls were here with Nathan. They didn't even get to say goodbye. The words settled heavy in the kitchen. Elena had lost things, her career, her home, her dignity, piece by piece. But she'd never lost someone she loved without warning, never had to explain to children why their mother wasn't coming home. That's terrible. It broke something in him, in all of them. Mrs. Chen resumed her work, but slower now. The girls stopped talking for almost a month, just completely silent. Nathan threw himself into work, 16-hour days, anything to avoid being in this house. I stayed because someone had to, and because I loved Sarah. She was the kind of person who remembered your birthday and asked about your grandkids and made you feel like family, even though you were staff. You miss her every day. This house used to be loud. Music playing, the girls laughing, Sarah singing off-key while she cooked even though I told her I'd handle dinner. Now it's just, she gestured vaguely, quiet. Like everyone's afraid noise might break whatever's holding us together. Elena finished her eggs, guilt creeping in. I shouldn't be here. This is a family grieving. They don't need a stranger complicating things. Maybe they need exactly that. Mrs. Chen met her eyes. Someone with no history here, no expectations, no agenda. Everyone has an agenda. Do you? Elena considered lying, but Mrs. Chen's gaze was too direct. I want to survive. That's my agenda. Everything else is just details. Fair enough. Mrs. Chen handed her a glass of orange juice. Mr. Bennett's office is down the hall, second door on the left. Don't let him intimidate you. His bark is much worse than his bite. The office turned out to be less formal than Elena expected. Yes, there was a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and the kind of leather furniture that probably cost more than a used car. But there were also crayon drawings taped to the walls, a bin of toys in the corner, photos of the twins at various ages scattered among the law books. Nathan sat behind the desk, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear. He held up one finger in a wait gesture, and Elena hovered in the doorway, uncertain. I understand your concerns, he was saying, his voice clipped. But the answer is still no. We're not restructuring that division just to make the quarterly numbers look better. Because I don't particularly care what the board thinks. Tell them they're welcome to call me directly if they'd like to hear me say no in person. He hung up without saying goodbye, then rubbed his temples like fighting off a headache. Sorry about that. Corporate politics. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. Elena sat, feeling like she was at a job interview she hadn't prepared for. Did you sleep okay? Nathan asked. Better than I have in months, thank you. Good. He closed the laptop, giving her his full attention. I want to be direct with you if that's all right. I'd prefer it, actually. I spent most of last night thinking about this situation. What happened on that platform, what my daughters asked me to do, what I'm willing to risk. He leaned back in his chair. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm terrible at halfway measures. Elena's stomach tightened. Meaning? Meaning I can drop you at a shelter this morning with some cash and call it charity. Or I can actually try to help, which is complicated and potentially messy and definitely not something I'd normally do. And which option are you leaning toward? The complicated one, apparently, against every instinct I've developed in the last 2 years. He pulled out a folder, set it on the desk between them. I did some basic research this morning. Elena Brooks, former art teacher at Riverside Middle School, worked there for 6 years before resigning under pressure 8 months ago. No criminal record. Credit score destroyed by debts you didn't create. Multiple police reports filed against Victor Hale, none of which led to charges because he vanished before they could build a case. Elena's face burned. You investigated me. I have 2 daughters to protect. Yes, I investigated you. No apology in his voice. What I found was exactly what you told me. Someone who got buried by someone else's choices. And now you feel sorry for me? No. Now I have data instead of assumptions. He pushed the folder toward her. I also had my lawyer look into your situation. The debt, the fraud, all of it. With proper legal representation and about 6 months of work, most of this could be cleared. You'd still have damage to repair, but you wouldn't be drowning. Elena stared at the folder like it might bite her. Why would you do that? Because I can. Because my daughters are right that I have resources sitting unused. Because he hesitated, choosing words carefully. Because watching you with them last night reminded me that there are still good people in the world who've just had terrible luck. And maybe helping one of them isn't the worst thing I could do. You don't know I'm good people. You know what I told you and what's in that folder. That's not the same thing. True, but I'm willing to take the risk. Why? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When Sarah died, everyone wanted to help. Meals appeared, cards piled up. People offered money, time, connections, everything except the one thing I actually needed. Which was? Someone to tell me it was okay that I was failing, that grief doesn't follow rules, that good parents can completely fall apart, and it doesn't mean they're broken forever. He looked away, jaw tight. Instead, everyone told me how strong I was, how well I was handling it, how Sarah would be proud, and I wanted to scream at all of them that I wasn't handling it, I was drowning, and pretending otherwise was killing me. The honesty was startling. Elena hadn't expected this, a billionaire admitting weakness, acknowledging failure. Your daughters aren't drowning anymore, she said quietly. I saw them last night. They're sad, but they're not hollow. They were hollow 3 months ago, completely empty, and I didn't notice because I was too busy hiding in conference rooms and convincing myself that providing financially was the same as being present. He met her eyes again. You gave them something last night. Attention, kindness, the sense that someone actually saw them. I can't pay you for that, but I can offer you a way forward if you want it. What kind of offer? Live in the guest house, help with the girls, not as a nanny, but as someone who's there. Meals, homework, the daily chaos of 6-year-olds. In exchange, you get stability while my lawyer works on your legal situation. And once that's cleared, we'll help you get back on your feet. Job placement, references, whatever you need. It was too much. Too generous. Too good to be real. There's a catch, Elena said. There's always a catch. The catch is that you'd be living in my space, around my children, with access to my home. I need to trust you, which means you need to earn that trust. Any dishonesty, any hint that you're using this situation, I get thrown out on my ass, I understand. More than that, I protect my daughters above everything else. If I think for a second they're in danger, legal or otherwise, you're gone, and I'll use every resource I have to make sure you can't come back. I won't be nice about it. The threat should have scared her. Instead, it was almost reassuring. At least he was being honest about the stakes. How long? Elena asked. What? How long is this arrangement? A week? A month? I need to know what I'm agreeing to. Nathan considered. 6 months, initially. That gives my lawyer time to work, gives you time to figure out next steps, gives my daughters time to adjust to having someone around who isn't staff. After that, we reassess. And if your daughters get attached and then I leave, you're okay with that? No, but they're already attached, and you've been here less than 24 hours. That ship has sailed. He almost smiled. Besides, they need to learn that people can leave and it doesn't mean they were never cared for. That's a lesson I've been avoiding teaching them. Elena thought about the guest cottage, the clean clothes, the hot shower, the possibility of not spending another night wondering if she'd freeze to death before morning. She thought about Victor's debts hanging over her head, making it impossible to rent an apartment, or get a decent job, or do anything except survive. She thought about Ava and Chloe, 2 little girls who'd looked at her like she mattered. Okay, she said. 6 months. But I'm not pretending to be their mother. I can't replace her. I'm not asking you to. Sarah was irreplaceable. Pain flickered across his face. I'm just asking you to be present, that's all. And if this doesn't work, if I'm terrible with kids, or you decide I'm not trustworthy, then we end it, professionally. I'll still help with your legal situation and make sure you have somewhere safe to land. I'm not going to throw you back on the street because things didn't work out. You're either incredibly generous or incredibly naive. Neither. I'm just tired of being afraid of everything. He stood, extending his hand. Do we have a deal? Elena looked at his hand, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. About how she'd trusted before and ended up homeless. About how good things didn't happen to people like her. But she was also tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of survival being her only goal. She shook his hand. Deal. Good. Mrs. Chen will help you get settled. The girls get home at 3:30, and I'm sure they'll have opinions about all of this. He pulled out a credit card, set it on the desk. Household account. Use it for anything you need, clothes, personal items, whatever, within reason. Elena stared at the card like it might explode. I can't. You can't help with two 6-year-olds in one set of clothes. It's practical, not charity. There's a difference? To me, yes. He checked his watch. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Mrs. Chen knows the house rules, the girls' schedule, everything you'll need to know. She'll get you oriented. Nathan, he paused at the door. Thank you. Really. Thank me in 6 months if this actually works. And then he was gone, leaving Elena alone in an office full of family photos and children's drawings, and the overwhelming sense that she'd just agreed to something that would change everything. Mrs. Chen found her there 10 minutes later, still holding the credit card like she wasn't sure it was real. He give you the speech? The older woman asked. Which speech? The one where he's very serious and businesslike and acts like this is a normal employer-employee arrangement instead of a terrified father trying to fix his broken family. That would be the one, yes. Mrs. Chen smiled. Come on, let me show you around before the chaos arrives home from school. The tour took an hour. Mrs. Chen showed her how the security system worked, where the girls kept their school supplies, which cabinet held the snacks they were actually allowed to have versus the ones Nathan thought they didn't know about. She explained that Ava was allergic to tree nuts, and Chloe had nightmares about twice a week, and both of them would try to negotiate bedtime into oblivion if you let them. They're good kids, Mrs. Chen said as they stood in the twins' bathroom, surrounded by more bath toys than seemed necessary. Just sad. They don't talk about Sarah much anymore, but you can see it in the way they go quiet sometimes, like they're listening for someone who's not coming. I don't know how to help with that. Nobody does. But being there helps. Not running away helps. She fixed Elena with a steady look. Sarah was my friend. For 10 years she was my friend. So I need to know, are you running from something or towards something? Honestly, I don't know anymore. Fair answer. Mrs. Chen headed for the stairs. One more thing. Nathan pretends he's fine. He'll work until midnight, skip meals, act like everything's under control. Don't believe him. He's barely holding it together, and he won't admit it until something breaks. I'm not here to fix him. No, but you're here to help with his kids, and they need him functional. So if you notice him falling apart, tell me. I can't make him listen, but I can try. Elena followed her back downstairs, processing the unexpected weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She'd agreed to help with 2 children. Somehow that had expanded to monitoring their father's mental health and navigating the aftermath of a family tragedy she had no training for. The front door burst open at exactly 3:30, and 2 small tornadoes blew into the house in a flurry of backpacks and winter coats and overlapping chatter. Mrs. Chen, Tyler said my drawing looked like a potato, but I was drawing a cat. That's not even the same thing. And then Miss Anderson made us write a whole page about why we shouldn't put glue in Samantha's hair, but Samantha started it. Both girls stopped mid-sentence when they saw Elena standing in the entryway. You're still here! Chloe dropped her backpack and ran straight into Elena's legs, wrapping her arms tight. Daddy said you might leave. He did? Elena shot a look at Mrs. Chen, who just shrugged. He said people sometimes need to go back to their lives, Ava said more cautiously, hanging back. But you don't have to go, right? You could stay. The hope in their voices was almost painful. I'm staying, Elena said, and watched both girls light up like she'd promised them Christmas in March. For a while anyway, your dad and I worked it out. We knew you would, Chloe grabbed her sister's hand. Ava, I told you. You didn't know. You just hoped really loud. Same thing. They dragged Elena toward the kitchen, talking over each other about their day at school, their friends, their teacher who gave too much homework and didn't understand that second graders needed more recess time. Normal kid complaints that felt absurdly precious after months of adult problems. Mrs. Chen provided snacks, apple slices, and cheese crackers, and the twins settled at the kitchen counter to do homework while Elena watched, unsure what her role was supposed to be. Can you help me with spelling? Ava asked, pushing a worksheet toward her. I'm bad at spelling. You're not bad at it. You just haven't learned all the rules yet. There's rules? So many rules. Some of them don't even make sense. Elena pulled up a stool. Show me what you're stuck on. They worked through the assignment together, Elena falling into teacher mode without thinking about it. explaining why some letters made different sounds in different words, helping Ava sound out the tricky ones, celebrating when she got 3 in a row correct. Chloe finished her math worksheet and immediately demanded attention for her art project. We're supposed to draw our family, but I don't know what to draw. Elena looked at the blank paper. What do you want to draw? I don't know. That's the problem. Okay, who's in your family? Me and Ava and Daddy and Mrs. Chen, kind of, and she hesitated. Do I have to draw Mommy? The question hung in the air. Mrs. Chen had gone very still at the stove. Do you want to draw her? Elena asked carefully. I don't know. Miss Anderson said family is who lives with you, but Mommy doesn't live with us anymore. She's dead. The matter-of-fact way she said it was somehow worse than if she'd cried. Family is more than who lives with you, Elena said. Family is people who love you, even if they're not here anymore. So I can draw Mommy, even though she's gone? If you want to. Or you can draw just the people who are here now, or both. It's your picture. You get to decide what family means to you. Chloe thought about that, then picked up a crayon and started drawing. Elena watched her add stick figures to the paper. 2 small ones, 1 tall one, 1 medium one that might have been Mrs. Chen. Then she added another figure off to the side, separate from the others. A woman with long hair and a big smile. That's Mommy, Chloe said quietly. She's not with us, but she's still family. Is that okay? Elena's throat tightened. That's perfect. Ava leaned over to look. You made her pretty. She was pretty, remember? Not really. My brain keeps forgetting what she looked like. The girls looked at each other with identical expressions of sadness, so profound it hurt to witness. That's normal, Elena said, even though nothing about this was normal. Sometimes our brains do that. But you have pictures, right? You can look at those when you want to remember. Daddy put them all away, Ava said. He said they made him too sad. Elena made a mental note to talk to Nathan about that. Kids needed to remember. Hiding the evidence didn't make the grief disappear. Well, she said instead, tell me something you do remember. Anything. Ava scrunched up her face, thinking. She made really good pancakes, like really, really good, with chocolate chips. And she sang in the car, Chloe added, really loud, even when the songs were bad. She let us jump on the bed sometimes when Daddy wasn't home. And she always knew when we were sad, even if we didn't say anything. They kept going, memories spilling out like they'd been waiting for permission. Elena listened, adding comments that kept them talking, helping them build a picture of their mother from fragments. Mrs. Chen caught her eye from across the kitchen and nodded slightly. Approval, maybe? Or just acknowledgement that Elena hadn't completely screwed up her first real interaction with the girls. Nathan came home at 6:30, looking tired in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. He loosened his tie as he walked into the kitchen, and both girls immediately ran to him. Daddy, Elena helped me with spelling, and I got them all right. And she said it's okay to draw Mommy in my family picture even though she's gone. Nathan's expression froze for just a second before he recovered. That's good. I'm glad. But Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Talking about Sarah clearly cost him something. How was work? She asked, giving him an out. Long, frustrating, the usual. He set his briefcase down. Have you 3 been okay? We've been great, Chloe said. Elena knows a lot about art and she's funny, and she didn't get mad when I spilled juice on the counter. It was barely a spill, Elena said, more like a light splash. It was definitely a spill, but a small one. Nathan looked between them, something complicated in his expression. Well, I'm glad it's working out. Dinner was less formal than the night before. Mrs. Chen had left food that just needed reheating, and they ate in the kitchen instead of the dining room, the girls chattering about school while Nathan picked at his food and checked his phone too often. Daddy, that's the no phones at dinner rule, Ava pointed out. I know, sorry, work emergency. You always have work emergencies. That's because work always has emergencies. But he put the phone away, and Elena watched him try to engage with his daughters, even though exhaustion pulled at him like gravity. After dinner, the girls wanted to show Elena their playroom, a converted bedroom that looked like a toy store had exploded in it. They had elaborate plans involving dolls and a makeshift fort and a tea party that required formal invitations. Nathan appeared in the doorway at some point, watching Elena get dragged into whatever game they'd invented. "I can take over if you want to get settled," he offered. "It's fine. Unless you want to join? I'm apparently the princess who's been captured by dragons." "The dragons are nice, though," Chloe clarified. "They just want someone to have tea with." "Obviously." Nathan's mouth twitched toward a smile. "I'll pass on being the knight. I have calls to make." "It's almost 8, Elena pointed out. "I know what time it is." "Just checking." He left, and the girls exchanged knowing looks. "He works too much," Ava said. "Way too much," Chloe agreed. "You two sound like little adults. Mrs. Chen says we had to grow up fast." Ava handed Elena a plastic teacup. "She says it's not fair, but it is what it is." Elena sipped imaginary tea and thought about children who had to grow up fast, and fathers who worked instead of grieving, and families held together by routine instead of joy. The twins went to bed easier than she expected. Baths, pajamas, toothbrushing accomplished with minimal negotiation. But when she tried to say goodnight and leave, Chloe grabbed her hand. "Can you stay? Just until we fall asleep?" Elena looked at their faces, at the hope and fear mixed there. "Yeah, I can stay." She sat on the floor between their beds, listening to their breathing slow and even out. Moonlight came through the windows, casting shadows that danced on the walls. She thought about how quiet the mansion was compared to the train station, how different her life had become in less than 48 hours. When both girls were fully asleep, Elena stood carefully and headed for the door. Nathan was standing in the hallway. "How long have you been there?" she whispered. "Long enough." He looked past her at his sleeping daughters. They don't usually settle that easily. "Maybe they're just exhausted." "Maybe. Or maybe you're better at this than you think." They walked downstairs together, the house settling around them in creaks and sighs. "Mrs. Chen mentioned you put away the photos," Elena said. "Of Sarah." His jaw tightened. "Did she?" "The girls are forgetting what she looked like. They need those pictures." "I know what they need." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're so busy protecting yourself from grief that you're not noticing they're still drowning in it." Nathan stopped at the bottom of the stairs, turning to face her. "You've been here 2 days. You don't get to tell me how to parent my children." "You're right, I don't, but someone needs to because this isn't working. This is none of your business. You made it my business when you asked me to help with them." They stared at each other, tension crackling in the air. Elena half expected him to fire her on the spot, to tell her to pack her things and get out. Instead, he deflated slightly. "The photos are in my office, bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. If you think they need them, put them back up wherever Sarah had them." "You should be the one to do that." "I can't." His voice cracked slightly. "I can't look at her face and explain to them why she's gone when I don't have an answer. So if you're so certain about what they need, you do it." He walked away before Elena could respond, leaving her alone in the foyer. She found the photos exactly where he said they'd be, dozens of them, shoved in a drawer like evidence of a crime. Sarah at the beach with the twins. Sarah laughing at something off camera. Sarah and Nathan on their wedding day looking impossibly young and happy. Elena spread them out on the desk, studying the woman who'd left such a hole in this family. She'd been pretty in an understated way. Light brown hair, warm eyes, the kind of smile that made you want to smile back, real, present. The kind of mother who sang off key and made chocolate chip pancakes and knew when her daughters were sad without being told. The kind of person Elena could never replace and shouldn't try to. But she could give the girls their mother's memory back. She worked for the next hour, hanging photos in the places Mrs. Chen said Sarah had kept them. The living room mantel, the hallway going upstairs, the breakfast nook where the family used to eat together. When she finished, the house felt different. Less like a museum of grief, more like a home that acknowledged its history. Nathan never came out of his office. Elena didn't push. That night, back in the guest cottage, she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. This wasn't just helping with kids. This was stepping into the middle of a family's trauma and hoping she didn't make everything worse. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Thank you. For tonight. For pushing. I needed that." N. Elena stared at the message for a long time before responding. You're welcome. Get some sleep. You too. She set the phone down and closed her eyes, and for the second night in a row, she slept without nightmares. Outside, the winter night pressed against the windows. And inside the main house, Nathan sat in his office surrounded by work he couldn't focus on, thinking about a homeless woman who'd been in his life for 2 days and somehow already understood his daughters better than he did. Tomorrow would bring new complications. But tonight, photos of his wife hung on the walls again, and his daughters had fallen asleep peacefully. And maybe that was enough. 3 weeks passed before Elena realized she'd stopped counting days. It happened gradually, the shift from survival mode to something that almost resembled living. She woke up in the guest cottage each morning without that initial panic of not knowing where she was. She knew the twins' schedules better than her own used to be. She'd memorized which mug Nathan preferred for his coffee and how Mrs. Chen liked the kitchen organized, and that Chloe had nightmares on Tuesdays more than any other day for reasons no one could explain. The routine should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt like breathing. You're getting too comfortable, she told her reflection one morning, brushing her hair with an actual hairbrush instead of her fingers. The face looking back at her had color in it now, the hollow-eyed desperation replaced by something that looked almost healthy. This isn't permanent, don't forget that. But it was getting harder to remember. The twins had absorbed her into their world with the unself-conscious completeness that only children could manage. She wasn't their mother, and everyone knew it, but she was Elena, and that seemed to be enough. They saved their best artwork for her. They asked her opinion on important matters like whether purple or pink was superior and if dragons could be vegetarians. They fought in front of her without apologizing afterward, which Mrs. Chen said was a sign they'd accepted her as family. Nathan remained harder to read. He was polite, professional. He asked about the girl's day and thanked Elena for her help, and transferred money to the household account without comment. But there was a distance there, a wall he'd built that she couldn't quite see over. They existed in the same space but rarely occupied it together, passing each other in hallways and doorways like ships navigating around each other in the dark. Until the Saturday morning, everything shifted. Elena was in the kitchen making pancakes, not as good as Sarah's apparently were, but the twins had stopped comparing after the first week, when Nathan appeared in running clothes, earbuds in, clearly planning to escape to the home gym before anyone could trap him in conversation. Daddy! Chloe spotted him before he could retreat. Elena's making pancakes, the chocolate chip kind. He paused, pulled out one earbud. That's great, sweetie. Save me some. Or you could eat with us, Elena said before she could stop herself. Crazy idea, I know. His jaw tightened. I have things to do. On Saturday morning? What terrible emergency requires your immediate attention? Let me guess, emails that could wait until Monday? Elena, Daddy never eats with us anymore, Ava said matter-of-factly, settling at the counter. He's always busy. I'm not always... Nathan stopped, looking at his daughters. Really looking at them, maybe for the first time in days. Okay, fine, pancakes. He said it like agreeing to minor surgery, but he sat down. Elena hid her smile and flipped another pancake onto the griddle. Mrs. Chen has Saturdays off, she said conversationally. So it's just us. Hope you're okay with slightly burned edges. Slightly? I'm an art teacher, not a chef. Manage your expectations. The pancakes were actually pretty good, even if she did say so herself. The twins drowned theirs in syrup and ate with the focused intensity of small people who took breakfast very seriously. Nathan ate more carefully, but Elena noticed he finished his entire plate. So, she said, refilling coffee cups, what do people actually do on weekends? I've kind of forgotten. We used to go to the park, Chloe said, but we stopped. Why'd you stop? Because Daddy's always working, Ava said, shooting her father a look that was far too pointed for a 6-year-old. Nathan set down his fork. I'm not always working. You worked last Saturday, and the Saturday before that, and the one before that. I had work emergencies. We know. Chloe rolled her eyes in a way that suggested she'd learned it from someone. You always have work emergencies. Elena watched Nathan struggle with the truth of that statement. She should probably stay out of it. This was between him and his daughters, but watching him try to justify abandoning his kids to conference calls was making her irrationally angry. The park sounds nice, she said. We should go. It's February, Nathan pointed out. It's freezing. They have coats. You have coats. I finally have a coat that doesn't have holes in it. We're covered. Elena, unless you actually do have a work emergency, like a real one, not just emails you're using to avoid being present. His eyes flashed. You're out of line. Probably. But someone needs to be. She stood, started clearing plates. The girls want to go to the park. You're their father. Either come with us or explain to them why work is more important. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. The twins watched their father with identical expressions of hope mixed with resignation, like they expected disappointment but couldn't quite stop wanting more. Nathan exhaled slowly. Give me 10 minutes to change. Both girls erupted in surprise celebration, and Elena caught the look on Nathan's face, guilt and relief, and something that might have been gratitude if he'd let himself feel it. 20 minutes later, they piled into Nathan's SUV. The twins argued about music choices while Elena sat in the passenger seat, wondering if she'd pushed too hard. Nathan drove in silence, his jaw still tight. I'm sorry, she said quietly, under the cover of the girls' chatter. That was out of line. It was. But I'm not wrong. No, you're not wrong. He kept his eyes on the road. I just don't know how to do this anymore. Be present. Be the dad they need. Everything feels like I'm faking it. So fake it. They're 6. They can't tell the difference between genuine and good enough. That's terrible advice. It's realistic advice. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up. He didn't respond, but his grip on the steering wheel loosened slightly. The park was mostly empty, too cold for the usual weekend crowds. The twins ran straight for the playground equipment, their breath visible in the freezing air. Elena and Nathan followed more slowly, hands shoved in pockets, maintaining careful distance. When's the last time you were here? Elena asked. Before Sarah died, she used to bring them every Saturday. He watched his daughters climb the jungle gym with the focus of mountaineers. She'd pack snacks and sit on that bench over there and let them run wild for hours. Said it was good for them to just be kids without structure. Sounds like she was smart. She was. About everything. Especially about them. His voice went rough. I keep thinking I should know what to do. I'm their father. I should have instincts about this, but I don't. I just have panic and bad decisions and the constant fear that I'm screwing them up permanently. Elena studied his profile, the tension in his shoulders. You want to know a secret? What? Their mom felt that way too. He looked at her sharply. How would you know? Because all good parents feel that way. The ones who think they have all the answers are usually wrong. The ones who are terrified they're failing are the ones who care enough to try. She paused. At least that's what my students' parents used to tell me. The good ones, anyway. You miss it. Teaching. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Every single day. Standing in front of a classroom, watching kids figure out they can create things, that their ideas matter. Yeah, I miss it. My lawyer thinks we can clear most of your debt situation within 4 months. The fraud case is solid. After that, getting recertified to teach should be straightforward. Elena's breath caught. 4 months? Give or take. Victor left enough of a trail that proving you weren't involved isn't difficult, just time-consuming. He glanced at her. You could have your life back by summer. The word should have filled her with relief. Instead, she felt something uncomfortably close to loss. Her life back meant leaving this house, these girls, this strange limbo that had somehow become home. That's good, she managed. That's really good. You don't sound convinced. I am. She watched Chloe help Ava reach a higher bar, the casual teamwork of siblings who knew each other completely. I wasn't expecting to care this much. About them. About any of this. Elena, look out! Nathan's shout came half a second before Chloe launched herself off the top of the slide in a move that defied both physics and common sense. Elena lunged forward, catching the girl in a tackle that sent them both tumbling into the mulch. What were you thinking? Elena gasped, checking Chloe for injuries. I was thinking you'd catch me. Chloe grinned, completely unrepentant. And you did. That's not how this works. You can't just jump off things and expect, but you caught me. Elena wanted to argue, but the logic was airtight from a 6-year-old's perspective. Next time, warn me first. Okay. Chloe ran off to rejoin her sister, leaving Elena sitting in the mulch trying to remember how to breathe. Nathan appeared above her, extending a hand. You okay? Terrified, but okay. She let him pull her up, brushing wood chips off her coat. Does she do that often? Jump off things without warning. It's basically her hobby. But he was almost smiling, the first real smile she'd seen from him in weeks. Sarah used to say Chloe was going to give us all heart attacks before she turned 10. Sarah was optimistic. I'm thinking 8. They sat on the bench, Sarah's bench apparently, and watched the girls play. Other families started arriving as the morning warmed up marginally. Kids bundled in winter gear, parents clutching travel mugs of coffee. Normal weekend scenes, the kind Elena used to take for granted before her life imploded. Can I ask you something? Nathan said after a while. Sure. Why'd you stay? That first morning you could have taken the money and left. Why didn't you? Elena considered lying, giving him an easy answer, but they'd gone past easy answers somewhere between the pancakes and the park. Because I was tired of running, tired of surviving day to day with no purpose except making it to tomorrow. She pulled her coat tighter. And because your daughters looked at me like I mattered. I haven't felt like I mattered in a long time. You matter to them, more than you probably realize. I know, that's what scares me. Why? Because in 4 months, I'm leaving, and they've already lost one person they cared about. I don't want to be the second. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Maybe you won't have to be. What does that mean? I don't know yet. He stood, brushing off his jeans. But we have 4 months to figure it out. Come on. I think Ava's trying to convince her sister to eat mulch. She wouldn't. You've met Chloe, right? They intercepted the twins before any mulch consumption occurred, then spent another hour at the park. Nathan actually played with his daughters instead of just supervising, pushing them on swings and timing their races, and pretending to be a monster they had to escape from. Elena watched him transform from the exhausted businessman into something that looked almost like a father who knew what he was doing. On the drive home, both girls fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from running around in the cold. Thank you, Nathan said quietly, for pushing. I needed that. You need it more often. They need it more often. I know, it's hard being here, doing normal things without her. It feels wrong. It feels wrong because you love her, but staying away from your kids won't bring her back. It just means they lose both parents instead of one. His knuckles went white on the steering wheel. You don't pull punches, do you? I spent 4 months homeless because I was too polite to tell people what I really thought. I'm done being polite. Noted. They carried the sleeping twins inside, and Elena helped Nathan get them upstairs and into their beds without waking them. Standing in the hallway afterward, listening to their quiet breathing, felt absurdly domestic. I have some work to catch up on, Nathan said, but he didn't sound convinced. It's Saturday afternoon. The work will still be there Monday. What else am I supposed to do? Elena thought about it. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it was required? I don't remember. That's sad. It's efficient. It's sad, she repeated. Come on. I'm teaching you how to waste time properly. She dragged him to the living room, turned on the TV, and made him sit through a nature documentary about penguins that neither of them particularly cared about. But sitting there in comfortable silence, watching birds waddle across ice, felt surprisingly normal, like something friends might do. Or family. Nathan fell asleep halfway through, his head tilted back against the couch. His face finally relaxed in a way it never was when he was awake. Elena let him sleep, turning down the volume and covering him with a throw blanket Mrs. Chen kept draped over the armchair. She should probably go back to the guest cottage, give him privacy. But the house was warm and the documentary was actually kind of interesting, and she found herself staying, just existing in the same space as someone else without expectation or obligation. When Nathan woke an hour later, disoriented and embarrassed, Elena just handed him the remote. Your turn to pick. But if you choose financial news, I'm leaving. He chose a cooking competition show instead, and they watched contestants panic over soufflés while the winter afternoon faded into evening outside. The girls appeared around 5, groggy and confused about why it was getting dark. Did we sleep all day? Chloe asked. Just a few hours, Elena assured her. What are we doing? Watching people fail at cooking. Can we fail at cooking too? Absolutely not, Nathan said. I've seen what happens when you two have access to the kitchen unsupervised. That was one time. You flooded the entire first floor. We were making a cake. With the garden hose? Elena looked between them. I need this story. The girls launched into an explanation that involved a misunderstanding about what water the batter meant. And Nathan added commentary that made Elena laugh so hard she couldn't breathe. By the time they ordered pizza for dinner, Mrs. Chen's night off meant no one was cooking. The house felt lighter than it had in weeks. They ate in the living room instead of the dining room, the twins sitting on the floor and getting crumbs everywhere while some animated movie played in the background. Nathan didn't check his phone once. Elena didn't think about her temporary status or the guest cottage or the fact that this wasn't really her life. For a few hours, they were just people sharing space and pizza and bad jokes. And it was enough. Later that night, after the girls were in bed and Nathan had retreated to his office, Elena walked back to the guest cottage under stars that were actually visible this far from the city. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she'd been ignoring for days. Victor, I know where you are. We need to talk. Her blood went cold. She stood in the middle of the dark driveway, staring at words that threatened to destroy everything she'd built. 3 more texts followed in rapid succession. You think you can hide in some rich guy's house? I need money. You owe me. Call me or I'm showing up there. Your choice. Elena's hands shook. She should tell Nathan. Should show him the texts and let him handle it with lawyers and restraining orders and all the resources he had at his disposal. But the thought of bringing Victor's chaos into this house, of contaminating the fragile peace they'd found, made her physically ill. She deleted the text without responding and turned off her phone. It was a temporary solution, she knew that. Victor wouldn't go away just because she ignored him, but tonight she needed to pretend everything was fine for just a little bit longer. The cottage felt emptier than usual when she entered. She locked the door, checked it twice, then pulled all the curtains closed even though there was nothing to see but gardens and darkness. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound outside made her jump, wind in the trees, an animal rustling through the bushes, the house settling. She kept seeing Victor's face, hearing his voice, remembering the way he used to manipulate her into believing his problems were her responsibility. She'd been so stupid, so trusting, so convinced that love meant sacrifice and supporting your partner even when they made questionable choices. By the time dawn broke, Elena had made a decision. She'd figure this out herself. Fix it before it became a problem. Victor wanted money? She'd find a way to give him enough to disappear again, and this time she wouldn't care where he went or what happened to him. She just needed to keep him away from the twins. From Nathan. From this fragile thing they were building together. At breakfast, Nathan noticed something was wrong immediately. You okay? You look exhausted. Didn't sleep great. Not a lie. Bad dreams. About? The usual. Being homeless again. Losing everything. You know, light comedy stuff. He studied her with an expression she couldn't read. You know you're safe here, right? That's not going to happen. Right. Of course. She poured coffee with hands that shook slightly. Just my brain being dramatic. The twins appeared and breakfast became the usual chaos of cereal negotiations and lost homework and someone's shoe going missing. Elena let the noise wash over her, using it as cover for the panic churning in her stomach. Elena? Ava was looking at her with concern. Are you sad? No, sweetie, just tired. You look sad. Kids saw too much. Noticed things adults tried to hide. I'm okay, promise. But Ava didn't look convinced, and neither did Nathan. The day passed in a blur. Elena went through the motions, helping with homework, making snacks, pretending everything was normal, while her mind raced through possibilities. She could ask Nathan for a loan, but explaining why would require telling him about Victor. She could ignore the texts and hope he was bluffing about showing up. She could run, disappear before Victor found her here. None of the options were good. That night, after the girls were asleep, she sat in the cottage and turned her phone back on. 17 messages from Victor, each one more threatening than the last. You think I won't come there? I know the address, looked it up. Nice place, bet he'd love to know who you really are. Last chance. $10,000 and I disappear. Otherwise I'm coming tomorrow. Elena felt sick. $10,000 might as well be $1 million. She had nothing. The household credit card Nathan gave her was for expenses related to the girls, not paying off her criminal ex-boyfriend. A knock at the cottage door made her jump so hard she dropped the phone. "Elena, it's Nathan. Can we talk?" She shoved the phone under a couch cushion and opened the door. Nathan stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking tired and concerned and far too perceptive. "What's wrong?" he asked without preamble. "Nothing. I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar. What's going on?" "Nathan, I said I'm fine, and I'm saying I don't believe you. You've been off all day, distracted, scared maybe. So either tell me what's wrong or I'm going to worry about it all night and be useless tomorrow." Elena wanted to lie, wanted to protect him from this, but she was so tired of carrying everything alone. "Victor contacted me," she said quietly. "He wants money. Says he'll show up here if I don't pay him." Nathan's expression went from concerned to dangerous in the space of a heartbeat. "When?" "Tonight. Multiple texts. He knows where I am." "How much does he want?" 10,000. "That's it?" Nathan almost laughed. "Elena, that's nothing." "It's not nothing to me, and I'm not asking you for money. I don't know what to do. I can't let him come here. I can't let him anywhere near the girls." Nathan pulled out his phone. "Give me his number." "What?" "No, Nathan, you can't." "Watch me." His voice had gone cold, businesslike. The billionaire instead of the grieving father. "I'm not letting some con artist extort you. Give me the number." "This is my problem. You're in my house, helping raise my children. That makes it my problem, too." He met her eyes. "Trust me, please." Elena hesitated, then pulled up Victor's contact and showed Nathan the screen. He photographed it with his own phone, then made a call. "Michael?" "Nathan Bennett. Sorry for the late call. I need you to handle something." He rattled off Victor's information while Elena stood frozen. "Restraining order first thing Monday morning. Full background check. And I want to know every illegal thing he's done in the past 5 years. Yes, I'm aware it's Saturday night. That's why I'm paying you quadruple your usual rate." He hung up and looked at Elena. "Done." "You can't just—" "I can and I did. Michael's the best lawyer I know. By Monday afternoon, Victor will have so much legal pressure on him, he won't dare come within 100 miles of you." "Nathan, this is too much. I can handle—" "How? You have no money, no resources, no legal standing to fight him. What exactly was your plan? Hope he'd go away out of the goodness of his heart?" His voice softened slightly. "Elena, this is what I do. I solve problems. Let me solve this one." She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle her own life, but the relief flooding through her was too strong. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We still don't know what he'll do before Monday." Nathan thought for a moment. "Pack a bag. You're staying in the main house tonight." "That's not necessary. Someone who's threatened you knows exactly where you're sleeping." "Yes, it's necessary." He was already heading for the door. "Guest room upstairs, second from the end. Move." Elena grabbed essentials and followed him back to the house, feeling like a kid being protected from monsters under the bed. Except the monster was real, and he had her phone number and knew where she lived. The guest room was beautiful in an impersonal way. Expensive furniture, neutral colors, everything perfectly coordinated. Elena set her bag down and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process how quickly everything had escalated. Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Security system is armed. Cameras cover the whole property. If he shows up, we'll know." "You have cameras?" "I'm a single father with considerable assets. Of course I have cameras." "Right, obviously." He lingered in the doorway, clearly wanting to say something else. "What?" Elena asked. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? About the texts?" "Because this isn't your problem. Because I didn't want to drag you into my mess. Because—" She stopped, choosing honesty. "Because I was afraid you'd decide I was too much trouble and ask me to leave." "Elena." He said her name like she'd said something incredibly stupid. "Do you know what my daughters would do to me if I kicked you out? I'd need witness protection." Despite everything, she almost smiled. "They'd get over it." "No, they wouldn't." He met her eyes. "And neither would I. You've become part of this family somehow. I'm not sure when it happened, but it did. So Victor threatening you is the same as threatening them. And I don't take kindly to threats." The words settled in her chest, warm and terrifying in equal measure. "Get some sleep," Nathan said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. But tonight, you're safe. I promise." He left before she could respond. pulling the door mostly closed behind him. Elena lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in the house, two little girls slept peacefully, unaware of the chaos their simple act of kindness had set in motion. Down the hall, their father probably wasn't sleeping at all, too busy planning how to protect everyone under his roof. And in the guest room, Elena Brooks, former teacher, former homeless woman, current something she didn't have words for, finally let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face everything alone anymore. Her phone buzzed one more time. Another message from Victor, angrier than the others. She turned it off and rolled over, and eventually, exhaustion pulled her under into dreamless sleep. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of gray sky that promised snow but refused to commit. Elena woke in the unfamiliar guest room, disoriented for the third time since arriving at the Bennett house, but this time the confusion came with an edge of dread. Victor. The threats. The money she didn't have and the danger she'd brought to this doorstep. She checked her phone. 23 new messages, each one worse than the last. The most recent one, sent at 3 in the morning, made her stomach turn. Fine. Don't respond. I'll just come introduce myself to your boyfriend and his kids. I'm sure they'd love to hear about us. Elena deleted it with shaking hands and got dressed quickly. She needed to talk to Nathan, figure out what came next, maybe start packing her things before Victor showed up and destroyed everything. The house was quiet when she ventured downstairs. Too quiet. Then she heard voices in the kitchen, Nathan's low rumble and someone else, a woman's voice she didn't recognize. Don't care what it costs, Nathan was saying. I want every piece of dirt on Victor Hale you can find. Every bad check. Every outstanding warrant. Every person he's defrauded. Everything. Nathan, this level of investigation takes time. We're talking weeks, maybe months. You have 48 hours. Elena stepped into the kitchen. Nathan stood by the counter with a woman in her 40s wearing a sharp suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Both turned when Elena entered. Ms. Brooks, the woman said, extending a hand. I'm Jennifer Chen. No relation to Mrs. Chen. I'm the investigator Nathan hired. At 6 in the morning on a Sunday? Elena looked at Nathan. You called her at 6 in the morning? I called her at 5:30, actually. Nathan poured coffee like this was completely normal. Jennifer's the best. She'll find everything we need to bury Victor legally. I haven't agreed to this. You don't have to agree. I'm doing it anyway. He handed her a mug. Drink. You look exhausted. Jennifer pulled out a tablet. I need you to tell me everything about Victor Hale. Start from the beginning. How you met, what he did, who his associates were, anything you remember about his activities. Elena sank into a chair, the weight of it all pressing down. This is insane. You're treating this like some kind of military operation. I'm treating it like someone threatened you and, by extension, my family, Nathan said quietly. That's not something I take lightly. So Elena talked. She told Jennifer everything, meeting Victor at a gallery opening, the whirlwind romance that should have been a red flag, the gambling that started small and spiraled, the forged signatures and fake loans, and the moment she realized everything in her life was built on lies. She talked until her coffee went cold and her voice went hoarse, and Jennifer took notes with the efficiency of someone who'd heard worse stories. He has a pattern, Jennifer said finally. This isn't the first time he's done this. I found 3 other women with similar complaints filed in different states. None of them pursued charges because he disappeared before they could. 3 others? Elena felt sick. There are 3 other people he did this to? That I found in 2 hours of preliminary research. There are probably more. Jennifer closed her tablet. The good news is that means we have multiple witnesses willing to testify. The bad news is your ex-boyfriend is significantly more dangerous than just a gambling addict with debt problems. Define dangerous, Nathan said, his voice sharp. He's connected to a loan shark operation in Atlantic City. Not running it, but working for them as a collector. Which means when he says he needs $10,000, he probably actually needs 50, and the people he owes aren't the type to accept payment plans. Elena's hands started shaking. She set down her mug before she dropped it. So what you're saying is he's desperate. Desperate and connected to people who solve problems with violence. Jennifer looked at Nathan. You need professional security, not just cameras, actual people. Already called them. They'll be here by noon. You called? Elena stood up. Stop. Both of you, just stop. This is too much. I'll leave. I'll go somewhere Victor can't find me, and you can go back to your normal lives, and— No. Nathan's voice cut through her panic. You're not running again. You're done running. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you became part of my daughter's lives. He was on his feet now, too, anger finally breaking through the controlled exterior. You think I'm going to let some con artist with mob connections threaten you and just shrug it off? You think I'm that person? I think you're a father with 2 little girls who don't need this chaos. And I think you're someone who matters to those little girls, and whether you believe it or not, you matter to me too. The words hung in the air between them. Nathan looked like he'd surprised himself as much as Elena. So no, you're not leaving. We're handling this properly, with lawyers and investigators and whatever else it takes. Jennifer cleared her throat. Should I give you 2 a moment? No, they said simultaneously. All right then. She packed up her tablet. I'll have a preliminary report by tomorrow evening. In the meantime, Nathan's right about security. Don't go anywhere alone, keep your phone on, and if Victor contacts you again, do not respond. Let him talk to my team instead. She left, and Elena collapsed back into her chair, head in her hands. I'm sorry, she said to the floor. I'm so sorry. I should have told you about this sooner. You should have trusted me. Nathan sat across from her. But I understand why you didn't. Trust isn't something either of us does easily anymore. I was trying to protect you, the girls, this whole situation. I know, but you don't have to protect us from your problems. That's not how this works. How does this work, Nathan? Because I still don't understand what I am to you, an employee, a charity case, some homeless woman you took pity on. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what to call it either, but I know you're not any of those things. He stopped, struggling. You're someone who makes my daughters laugh again, someone who calls me out when I'm being an idiot, someone who fits into this broken family like you were always meant to be here. And I don't have a label for that, but I know I'm not ready to lose it. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. I'm scared, not just of Victor, but of all of this, of mattering to people again, of having something to lose. I'm scared too, every single day, but being scared alone is worse than being scared together. Before either of them could say anything else, small footsteps thundered down the stairs. Elena! Chloe burst into the kitchen. You slept here. Are you moving into the house? Can you share our bathroom? Ava's stuff is everywhere and— I'm not moving in, sweetie. I just stayed the night. Why? Nathan and Elena exchanged looks. How did you explain stalker ex-boyfriends to 6-year-olds? Because there might be some bad weather coming, Nathan said smoothly, and the cottage isn't as safe in storms. It's not even raining. Not yet. But it might. Ava appeared behind her sister, looking skeptical. You're lying. You do that thing with your eyebrow when you lie. What thing? That thing you're doing right now. Nathan sighed. Fine. Someone Elena used to know might try to bother her, so she's staying close to the house for a while to be safe. Bad someone? Chloe's eyes went wide. Potentially problematic someone, Elena corrected. But your dad's handling it. Everything's fine. Are you scared? The direct question caught Elena off guard. She'd been asked a lot of things in her life, but no one had simply asked if she was scared and waited for an honest answer. Yeah, she admitted. A little bit. We'll protect you, Chloe announced with complete certainty. Right, Ava? Right. We're very fierce. They demonstrated their fierceness with roars that sounded more like confused kittens. Elena laughed despite everything, and Nathan's expression softened watching his daughters try to solve adult problems with childhood logic. Thank you, Elena told them. I feel much safer now. Can we have pancakes again? Ava asked, already moving on to more important matters. I think we can manage that. The rest of Sunday passed in forced normalcy. Elena made pancakes. The girls played board games with rules they invented as they went along. Nathan worked in his office but emerged every hour like he was checking to make sure Elena was still there. Security personnel arrived at noon, 2 serious-looking people who walked the property and installed additional cameras without fanfare. This is really happening, Elena murmured, watching through the window as one of them checked the cottage's perimeter. This is me making sure you're safe, Nathan corrected. There's a difference. By evening, the normalcy was wearing thin. The girls could sense something was wrong, getting clingy and anxious in the way children did when adults were worried. Bedtime became a negotiation. "Can Elena put us to bed?" Ava asked. "And can you stay, Daddy?" Chloe added. "Both of you?" So they did. Nathan read while Elena sat on the floor between the beds, and they took turns doing different character voices that made the girls giggle. It felt absurdly domestic, like playing house, except the house was real and the stakes were higher than any game. After the girls fell asleep, Nathan and Elena stood in the hallway again. It was becoming their spot, the place where they had the conversations they couldn't have anywhere else. "Jennifer called," Nathan said quietly. "Victor's been seen in the area, about 30 miles away, at a casino. She has someone watching him." "You have someone watching my ex-boyfriend?" "I have someone making sure your ex-boyfriend doesn't show up here." "Yes." "Nathan, this is, necessary. The word you're looking for is necessary." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd learned meant he was stressed. "I meant what I said this morning, about you mattering. I just want to make sure you know that." "I know. I'm just not sure what to do with it." "Neither am I, honestly. I wasn't planning on this. Any of this." "What were you planning?" "To get through each day without completely falling apart. To make sure my daughters survived losing their mother. To work enough that I didn't have time to feel anything." He leaned against the wall. "Those were my goals. Very modest, very achievable. Then 2 6-year-olds found you on a train platform and destroyed my entire plan. Sorry about that." "I'm not." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as her. "I should be. This is complicated and messy and potentially dangerous, but I'm not sorry." They stood there in the dim hallway, the house settling around them, and Elena felt the ground shifting under her feet. This wasn't just about safety or employment or helping with kids anymore. This was something else entirely, something she wasn't ready to name. "I should go to bed," she said finally. "Tomorrow's going to be complicated." "Tomorrow's Monday." "Every Monday is complicated. This one more than most." She went back to the guest room but didn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every car on the distant road made her think Victor had found her. By 3 in the morning, she gave up and went downstairs to make tea. Nathan was already in the kitchen. "Couldn't sleep either?" Elena asked. "Gave up trying around 2. He gestured to his laptop. "Been reading Jennifer's preliminary report. Victor's worse than we thought." "How much worse?" "Multiple assault charges that were dropped, restraining orders from 2 ex-girlfriends, evidence he's been running courier jobs for the loan shark operation, which means he's in deeper than just owing money." Nathan closed the laptop. "He's not going to just go away, Elena. Even with legal pressure, men like this don't accept defeat easily. So what do we do?" "We fight, with every resource I have, with lawyers and investigators and whatever else it takes." He met her eyes. "But I need you to be honest with me. Is there anything else? Anything you haven't told me that could come back to bite us?" Elena thought about it, really thought about it. "No. Victor was my only major mistake. Everything else was just life being difficult." "Okay, then we can handle this." "You keep saying we, because that's what this is. You're not alone anymore." The word settled into Elena's chest, warm and terrifying. She'd been alone for so long that having someone else carry part of the weight felt foreign. They sat in the kitchen drinking tea and not talking about the obvious thing hanging between them, that somewhere in the past few weeks, they'd become something more than employer and employee. Something that didn't have a name yet, but was growing anyway, like spring flowers pushing through frozen ground. Monday morning arrived with fresh snow and fresh chaos. The twins were running late. Nathan had back-to-back meetings, and Elena was trying to help everyone while monitoring her phone for threats from Victor. "I can't find my math homework," Ava shouted from upstairs. "That's because you didn't do it," Chloe shouted back. "Did too. Did not. Girls!" Nathan's voice cut through the argument. 10 minutes, or you're going to school in your pajamas." Somehow, they made it work. The twins got dressed and fed and out the door with seconds to spare. Nathan lingered, adjusting his tie and looking at Elena with concern. "Jennifer's team will be here all day," he said. "Don't leave the property. Don't answer the door unless you know who it is. And call me if anything feels wrong. I'll be fine. I survived 4 months on the streets. I can handle 1 day in a mansion." "That's not funny." It's a little funny. Elena, go. You're going to be late for your meeting. He left reluctantly, and the house fell into its weekday quiet. Mrs. Chen arrived, took one look at Elena, and made her sit down with tea and toast. Mr. Bennett told me about the situation, she said without preamble. With your ex. Of course he did. He's worried about you. He's worried about his daughters. He's worried about you, Mrs. Chen repeated firmly. I've known that man for 12 years. I know what he looks like when he's protecting his children versus when he's protecting someone he cares about. This is the second one. Elena didn't know what to do with that information, so she ate her toast and changed the subject. The morning passed slowly. Elena tried to stay busy, organizing the girls' craft supplies, responding to emails from Nathan's lawyer about her fraud case, anything to keep her mind off Victor. Security personnel rotated through the property on a schedule she didn't understand but found oddly comforting. Around noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hand hovered over it, debating. Don't answer, one of the security guards said. He'd appeared in the doorway without her noticing. If it's important, they'll leave a message. The call went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, her phone dinged with a new message. Elena played it on speaker. Elena. Victor's voice filled the kitchen, smooth and familiar and wrong. I know you're there. I know you think Bennett's money can protect you. But here's the thing. I don't want his money. I want mine. The money you owe me for the years I spent taking care of you. So you have two choices. Meet me tonight at the diner on Route 9, 8 o'clock, with $10,000 in cash. Or I show up at that mansion and have a very interesting conversation with your new family about who you really are. The message ended. Elena stared at the phone, her hand shaking. The security guard was already on his radio. We have contact. Sending you the recording now. Things moved fast after that. Jennifer appeared within the hour, Nathan called from his meeting, and suddenly Elena's quiet Monday became a tactical planning session she hadn't asked for. You're not meeting him, Nathan said through the phone speaker. Absolutely not. He's not bluffing about coming here, Elena argued. I know him. He'll do it. Then we'll have him arrested for trespassing and harassment. And what happens to the girls when police cars show up and their father is having his ex-employee's ex-boyfriend dragged away? You think that's better? Silence on the other end. I'm meeting him, Elena said. In a public place, with security nearby. I'll give him enough cash to go away and he'll be back in a month asking for more, Jennifer interrupted. That's how extortion works. You don't negotiate with people like Victor. You eliminate the leverage. I don't have leverage. He has all the leverage. Not anymore. Jennifer pulled out her tablet. My team found evidence Victor's been skimming from his employers, the loan sharks he works for. Which means if we threaten to expose him, he's got much bigger problems than a $10,000 debt. Elena felt like she was watching a chess game where she didn't understand the rules. You want to blackmail my blackmailer? I want to give him a reason to disappear permanently, and the fear of being murdered by loan sharks is a pretty compelling reason. This is insane. This is necessary, Nathan said, echoing his words from the day before. Let Jennifer's team handle it. Please. And what do? Just sit here while you all play spy games with my life? You stay safe. That is what you do. Elena wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too scared, too aware that she was out of her depth in waters she'd never learned to navigate. Fine, she said. Handle it. But if this goes wrong, it won't, Nathan said with more confidence than she felt. The afternoon dragged. Elena tried to distract herself but couldn't focus on anything. Mrs. Chen eventually gave up and sent her to the cottage with instructions to rest. You look like you're about to vibrate out of your skin, the older woman said. Go, take a bath. Read a book. Do something that isn't worrying. The cottage felt different now, less like sanctuary, more like hiding. Elena ran a bath and tried to relax, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. What if Victor didn't care about the loan sharks? What if he showed up anyway? What if Nathan's money and lawyers and security couldn't actually protect her from someone desperate and angry? She was still in the bath when her phone rang. Nathan. It's done, he said without preamble. What's done? Jennifer's team met with Victor, showed him the evidence they'd found, explained very clearly what would happen if his employers found out he'd been stealing. Gave him a choice, take $5,000 cash and disappear, or take nothing and spend the next month running from people who don't solve problems with lawyers. Elena sat up so fast water sloshed over the tub's edge. You paid him after all that talk about not negotiating? I paid him to go away. There's a difference. He signed papers, legal documents saying he'll never contact you again, never come near you or anyone associated with you. If he violates them, he's facing criminal charges and a very angry mob. So yeah, I paid him $5,000 for your peace of mind. I'd pay a lot more than that. Nathan. He's gone, Elena. Really gone. Jennifer's people watched him get on a bus heading west. It's over. The relief hit her so hard she couldn't breathe for a second. It's really over? It's really over. She cried then, hot tears mixing with bathwater, the kind of crying that came from releasing tension you'd held for so long you forgot it was there. Nathan stayed on the phone, not saying anything, just being present while she fell apart. When she could finally speak again, her voice came out rough. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you for this. You don't have to thank me. This is what family does. Is that what we are? Family? The pause stretched long enough that Elena thought the call had dropped. Yeah, Nathan said finally. I think maybe that's exactly what we are. They hung up, and Elena finished her bath in a daze. Victor was gone. Actually, gone. She didn't have to look over her shoulder anymore or jump at every unknown number. She could breathe. The twins came home to find Elena in the kitchen helping Mrs. Chen make dinner. Both girls immediately sensed the change in atmosphere. You look different, Ava observed. Less scary. I wasn't scary. You were a little scary, Chloe said. Like when teachers are mad but trying not to show it. Well, I'm not scary now. I'm making lasagna. Can we help? They helped, which mostly involved making a mess and eating half the cheese before it made it into the dish. But the chaos felt good, normal, like life resuming after holding its breath. Nathan came home early, which apparently never happened. He found them covered in flour and sauce, the kitchen a disaster zone, and he actually laughed. What happened here? Cooking happened, Elena said. Well, cooking happened to us anyway. I can see that. He leaned against the doorframe, watching them with an expression Elena couldn't quite name. Content, maybe. Or something close to it. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. The lasagna turned out better than expected, and the twins told elaborate stories about their day at school, and Nathan actually participated in the conversation instead of checking his phone. It felt like the kind of family dinner Elena used to imagine other people had, back when her own family was fractured and distant. After the girls went to bed, Nathan and Elena ended up in their usual spot in the hallway, but this time the tension felt different, lighter. I keep waiting for the catch, Elena said. For this to all fall apart. What if there isn't one? What if it just keeps being this? This doesn't last. Good things don't last for people like me. People like you? Nathan turned to face her fully. You mean people who are resilient and kind and who make my daughters laugh for the first time in 2 years? Those people? Who's people who were homeless 3 weeks ago. People with destroyed credit and no job prospects and ex-boyfriends who show up demanding money. Ex-boyfriend, singular and past tense. He's gone. Your credit's being repaired, and you do have job prospects. You're already working here. As what? Unofficial nanny? Temporary helper? This arrangement has an expiration date, Nathan. Does it have to? The question hung in the air between them. What are you asking? Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. I don't know exactly, but I know I don't want you to leave when the 6 months are up. I know my daughters need you, and I think maybe I need you too, and I'm tired of pretending this is temporary when it doesn't feel temporary at all. Nathan, you don't have to answer now. I'm just saying, think about it. Staying. Not as an employee or a charity case, but as someone who belongs here. He left her in the hallway before she could respond, and Elena stood there for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. She walked back to the cottage in a daze, her mind spinning. Stay. Actually stay. Build a life here with these people who'd somehow become her people. It was terrifying. It was impossible. It was everything she'd stopped letting herself want. That night, Elena dreamed of train platforms and freezing wind. But this time when she woke up shivering, she remembered she wasn't there anymore. She was safe. She was warm. And maybe, just maybe, she was home. Winter gave way to spring slower than Elena expected. Like the season itself wasn't quite ready to let go. But by late March, the snow had finally melted, revealing gardens that Mrs. Chen immediately began planning to restore, and mornings no longer felt like punishment. Elena had been at the Bennett house for almost 3 months, and the question Nathan had asked that night in the hallway remained unanswered, hanging between them like morning fog that never quite burned off. She'd gotten good at avoiding it, good at focusing on the twins, on helping Nathan's lawyer clear her legal mess, on anything except the terrifying possibility that she might actually stay. Because staying meant trusting that this wouldn't fall apart. Staying meant believing she deserved something more than survival. And Elena had spent a long time believing she didn't deserve much of anything. "You're doing it again," Mrs. Chen said one afternoon, watching Elena reorganize the pantry for the third time that week. "Doing what?" "That thing where you clean when you're worried. Last week you alphabetized the spice rack. The week before that you rearranged all the girls' books by color. They look better by color. They look like you're avoiding something." Mrs. Chen pulled out a chair, sat down with the authority of someone who'd earned the right to speak freely. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Elena set down the can of soup she'd been staring at without seeing. "Nathan asked me to stay. Like, really stay. Not just for 6 months." "I know." "You know?" "He told me. Asked my opinion, actually, which surprised both of us." Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. "I told him you'd be stupid to leave, and he'd be stupid to let you, but that's just me." "It's not that simple." "It never is. But it's also not as complicated as you're making it." "How do you know how complicated I'm making it?" "Because I've watched you for 3 months. You're happy here. The girls are happy with you. Nathan's happy for the first time since Sarah died. But you're still sleeping in the guest cottage instead of actually putting down roots because you think this is temporary even though nobody else does." The observation landed hard. Elena had known Mrs. Chen was perceptive, but this was uncomfortably accurate. "What if I'm not enough?" The words came out quieter than she intended. "For the girls, for Nathan. What if I stay and I mess it up and they end up worse than before? What if you leave and they end up worse than before?" Elena didn't have an answer for that. "Sarah was my friend," Mrs. Chen said after a moment. "For 10 years she was my friend, and I miss her every single day. But she's gone, and life kept going anyway, whether we wanted it to or not. You're not replacing her. You couldn't if you tried. But you're here, and you're real, and you make this house feel alive again." She stood, patted Elena's shoulder. "Sometimes the question isn't whether you're enough. It's whether you're brave enough to try." She left Elena alone with the half-organized pantry, and thoughts that wouldn't settle. The girls came home from school arguing about something involving playground politics and who had the right to the blue swing during recess. Elena refereed while helping with homework, made snacks that Chloe immediately declared were wrong without explaining what would make them right, and tried not to think about Mrs. Chen's words. Nathan came home earlier than usual, looking tired but less defeated than he used to. He'd been doing that lately, coming home at reasonable hours, eating dinner with them, being present instead of hiding in his office. Elena wasn't sure if it was because of her or because he'd finally started processing his grief, but the change was undeniable. "How was everyone's day?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Ava pushed Tyler off the swings," Chloe announced. "Did not." "Did too. I saw you. He pushed me first." Nathan looked at Elena. "Do I want to know?" "Probably not. But for the record, Tyler apparently pushed first, and Ava's response was proportional, according to 6-year-old justice standards." "Proportional?" "Nobody required medical attention. I'm calling it a win." He almost smiled. "Fair enough. Girls, go wash up for dinner. And Ava, we're going to talk about solving problems without pushing. Even when they deserve it? Especially then." The twins ran off, and Nathan lingered in the kitchen doorway. "Can we talk later, after they're asleep?" Elena's stomach clenched. "Sure, about what?" "About everything, I guess." He ran a hand through his hair. "I've been patient, letting you process. But I need to know where we stand." "Nathan, later," he said gently. "Let's just get through dinner first." Dinner was spaghetti, which the girls consumed with more enthusiasm than table manners. Elena watched Nathan try to teach them to twirl pasta properly and fail spectacularly, sauce ending up on everyone. It should have been chaos. Instead, it felt like the kind of normal she'd stopped believing existed. After dinner, after baths and toothbrushing and the elaborate bedtime routine the twins had developed, Elena found herself back in the hallway with Nathan, their spot, the place where everything important happened. "Walk with me?" he asked. They ended up outside, walking the grounds as twilight settled over everything. The gardens were starting to show signs of life, green shoots pushing through dead leaves, buds forming on branches, evidence that winter eventually ended, even when it felt permanent. "I got the final report from my lawyer today," Nathan said, "about your case." Elena's heart jumped. And they cleared almost everything. The fraud charges are officially dismissed. Most of the debt's been restructured or forgiven. Your credit's not perfect, but it's no longer destroyed. He stopped walking, turned to face her. "You're free, Elena. Really free. You can get your teaching license back, find a job, get your own place. Start over completely if you want." "That's good," she managed. "That's really good." "It is. But here's the thing. I don't want you to start over somewhere else. I want you to stay here." "Nathan, we talked about this." "No, you avoided talking about it. For 3 months you've been avoiding it." His voice was gentle but firm. "And I get it. I do. This is scary and weird and not what either of us planned, but I need to know. Are you staying because you want to or because you feel obligated?" Elena looked at the garden, the house, the lit windows where 2 little girls were probably supposed to be sleeping but were definitely still awake. "I don't know how to separate those things anymore." "Try." She took a breath, let it out slowly. "When I was on that platform, I'd given up. Not just on having a home or a job, but on mattering to anyone. I was just surviving, day by day, and that was all I expected for the rest of my life." She met his eyes. "And then Chloe and Ava stopped. They just stopped and saw me when everyone else walked past. And you brought me here, even though every instinct told you not to. And somewhere in these 3 months, I stopped surviving and started living again." "That's not an answer to my question." "I'm getting there." She smiled slightly. "I'm scared, Nathan. I'm scared of staying because what if I'm not good enough? What if I mess up those girls who've already lost so much? What if you wake up one day and realize you made a mistake bringing home a homeless stranger?" She paused. "But I'm also scared of leaving because these 3 months have been the happiest I've been in years, and I don't want to give that up." "So stay." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because you're still in love with your wife." The words burst out before she could stop them. "You're still grieving Sarah, and I can't be her replacement. I won't be the person you settle for because you're lonely and your daughters need a mother figure." Nathan's expression shifted through surprise, pain, and finally something that looked like understanding. "You're right. I am still in love with Sarah. I probably always will be, in some way. She was my best friend, the mother of my children, the person I plan to grow old with." He stepped closer. "But loving her doesn't mean I can't care about you. It doesn't mean this isn't real." "What is this, Nathan? Really?" "I don't know. I don't have words for it yet." He reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. "But I know that you make me want to be present instead of hiding. You make my daughters laugh again. You call me out when I'm being an idiot, and you fit into this family like you were always meant to be here. And maybe that's not romantic love or whatever we're supposed to call it, but it's real and it matters, and I don't want to lose it." Elena looked at their joined hands, his larger one surrounding hers, and felt something shift in her chest. "I don't want to lose it either." "Then don't. Stay. Not as an employee or temporary help, but as someone who belongs here. We'll figure out what that means as we go." "That's a terrible plan. Do you have a better one?" She thought about it. About the guest cottage she'd never fully unpacked. About the teaching job she could apply for now that her record was clear. About the life she could rebuild somewhere else, alone, safe from the risk of caring too much. And then she thought about Chloe's laugh and Ava's serious questions, and Nathan's rare smiles. About Mrs. Chen's knowing looks and family dinners, and feeling like she mattered to people who mattered to her. "No," she said finally. "I don't have a better plan." "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes. I'm staying." Nathan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. Maybe he had been. Maybe they both had. "There's one condition," Elena said. "What?" "I'm not moving into the main house. Not yet. The cottage works. It's mine, and I need that space. Done. Anything else? And we tell the girls together, this isn't just your decision or mine. They get a say. They've been asking me when you're moving in permanently for the past month. I think we know where they stand. Still, they deserve to know what's happening. They walked back to the house in comfortable silence, hands still linked. Elena felt like she'd just jumped off something very high without knowing if she could fly. But for the first time in years, the fear felt like possibility instead of threat. The twins weren't asleep, of course. They were supposed to be, but when Nathan and Elena peeked into their rooms, both girls were clearly faking it. Their breathing too deliberate, their positions too still. "We know you're awake," Nathan said. Both girls sat up immediately, grinning. "We have something to tell you," Elena said, sitting on the edge of Ava's bed while Nathan leaned against the door frame. "I'm going to stay here, for real. Not just 6 months, but as long as you want me here." Chloe launched herself out of her bed and into Elena's arms so fast she nearly knocked them both over. "I knew it. Ava, I told you. I said she was going to stay." "You did not. You said maybe. Maybe definitely counts. That's not how words work." "Girls," Nathan said, but he was smiling. "Let Elena breathe." Ava climbed into the hug more carefully, but her arms wrapped just as tight. "Are you going to be our new mom?" The question everyone had been avoiding landed in the middle of the room like a grenade. "No," Elena said gently. "I'm not your new mom. You already have a mom, and nobody can replace her. But I can be Elena, and I can be here, and I can care about you very much. Is that enough?" Both girls considered this with the seriousness of children navigating complicated emotions. "Can you still help with homework?" Chloe asked. "Of course. And make pancakes?" "Definitely. And tell Daddy when he's being stupid about work?" "Chloe," Nathan warned, but Elena laughed. "Yes, I can tell your dad when he's being stupid about work." "Then it's enough," Ava decided. "You can be Elena who lives here and takes care of us but isn't our mom. That's okay." Such simple logic from someone so young. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Now go to sleep," Nathan said. "For real this time. It's a school night." "Can Elena stay until we fall asleep?" Chloe asked. So Elena stayed sitting between their beds like she had 100 times before, but this time it felt different, permanent, like she wasn't just filling a role temporarily, but actually becoming part of the fabric of this family. When both girls were finally asleep, Nathan walked Elena to the cottage. They stood on the small porch, the night air cool but no longer freezing. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for staying, for trusting this. Thank you for giving me a reason to. I should get back. Make sure they're really asleep this time." But he didn't move, and neither did Elena. They stood there in the space between his world and hers, which maybe wasn't so separate anymore. "Nathan," she started, not sure how to finish. He kissed her forehead, gentle and brief. "Good night, Elena." "Good night." She watched him walk back to the main house, and something in her chest felt settled for the first time in years. This wasn't a fairy tale. She wasn't a princess, and he wasn't a knight, and the happy ending wasn't guaranteed. But it was real and messy in hers, and that was better than any fantasy. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm. Elena finally unpacked completely, turning the cottage into an actual home instead of a temporary shelter. She started applying for teaching positions, using Nathan's lawyer as a reference and slowly rebuilding the career she'd lost. She got interviews, some went well, some didn't. But having options felt like freedom. The twins finished the school year strong, their grades improving as their home life stabilized. Ava stopped having as many nightmares. Chloe's teachers stopped sending home notes about behavioral problems. They were still sad sometimes, still missed their mother, but the grief had transformed from drowning to something they could carry. Nathan started taking Fridays off, something his assistant said had never happened in the 12 years she'd worked for him. They spent weekends actually being a family, parks and museums and movie nights, and all the ordinary things that felt extraordinary because they'd all forgotten how to do them. In May, Elena got a job offer. A middle school in the next town over needed an art teacher starting in September. The salary wasn't great, but it was real. It was hers. She accepted, and Nathan took everyone out to celebrate. "You're really doing it," he said over ice cream that the twins were consuming with more enthusiasm than strategy. "Getting your life back." "Yeah," Elena agreed, "I really am. I'm proud of you. The words settled warm in her chest. When was the last time someone had said they were proud of her? When had she last done something worth being proud of? Thank you for everything. The lawyer, the safety, the chance to figure this out. You did the work. I just provided resources. Still, I wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be here without you either. He glanced at his daughters, who were debating whether chocolate or vanilla was superior with the intensity of philosophers. They're different now, better. And so am I. Better how? Less afraid, less angry, less convinced the world is just waiting to take everything I love. He paused. Sarah would have liked you, I think. She would have appreciated how you didn't try to be her. It was the first time he'd talked about Sarah directly to Elena, and it felt significant, like a door opening. I wish I could have known her, Elena said honestly. Me too. But I'm glad I know you. Summer arrived with heat that made the twins complain dramatically and demand pool time every afternoon. Elena taught them to swim properly, patient through their fear and frustration. Nathan would come home from work and find all three of them in the water, laughing and playing games that had no rules. One evening in late July, after the girls had gone to bed exhausted from a day at the beach, Nathan and Elena sat on the patio watching fireflies emerge in the garden. I've been thinking, Nathan said carefully. About us. Elena's stomach tightened. What about us? About what we are, what we're becoming. He turned to face her. I care about you, Elena, more than I thought I'd ever care about anyone again. And I know this is complicated with the girls and Sarah's memory and everything else. But I want to try, if you do. Try what? Being more than whatever undefined thing we've been doing for 6 months. Actually being together. Elena had known this conversation was coming, had been simultaneously hoping for it and dreading it. Nathan, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Okay, when will you be ready? I don't know that either. She pulled her knees to her chest. I'm still figuring out how to be a person again, how to have a job and a place to live and people who care about me. Adding a relationship on top of that feels like too much. So we wait. You'd really wait? Just like that? Elena, I waited 2 years to feel anything after Sarah died. I can wait however long you need to feel ready. He reached over, took her hand. I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you, apparently. We have time. And somehow, that was exactly what she needed to hear. Not pressure or demands or timelines. Just patience. Just time. August brought the end of summer and preparation for the new school year. The twins started first grade, anxious and excited in equal measure. Elena prepared for her first day teaching in almost 2 years, terrified she'd forgotten how. You're going to be amazing, Nathan assured her the night before. What if I'm terrible? What if I forgot everything? Then you'll figure it out. You're good at that. The first day of school was chaos. Elena had forgotten how loud 25 middle schoolers could be, how much energy it took to manage a classroom, how rewarding it felt when a student's face lit up with understanding. She came home exhausted and exhilarated. How was it? The twins demanded the moment she walked in. Tiring, great, weird, all of it. She collapsed on the couch. How was first grade? Our teacher is nice, but she makes us sit in assigned seats, Chloe said. That's basically torture. That's basically normal, Nathan corrected. Same thing. They told her about their day in overlapping detail while Elena tried to process her own. She had a job again, a real job. She was contributing, earning money, rebuilding a life that looked almost normal. The fall settled into routine. Elena taught during the week, helped with the twins in the evenings, spent weekends with a family that had somehow become hers. Nathan stopped asking when she'd be ready for more, content to let things develop naturally. In October, the twins had their 7th birthday. They wanted a party with their whole class, which meant Elena and Nathan spent a Saturday managing 20 children hopped up on sugar and excitement. This is insane, Elena said, watching kids play a game that seemed to involve running in circles and screaming. This is parenthood, Nathan corrected. Same thing. He laughed, and Elena realized how often he did that now. How the grief lines around his eyes had softened. How he looked like someone who'd survived the worst and found his way back to living. When the party ended and the last child was picked up, the twins crashed immediately, overwhelmed and happy. We did it, Nathan said, surveying the disaster zone that was his backyard. We survived anyway. Same thing. He started picking up paper plates. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? Really happy. Elena thought about her classroom and her students, about the cottage that was actually home now, about the twins who'd accepted her into their lives, about Nathan, who'd been patient beyond reason. Yeah, she said, I really am. Good. Me too. November brought cold weather and the twins' insistence on elaborate Thanksgiving plans. They wanted to invite everyone. Mrs. Chen, Nathan's assistant, Elena's former shelter volunteer who'd been kind when kindness was rare. We have a big table, Chloe reasoned. We should use it. So they did. Thanksgiving dinner became a chaotic gathering of people who'd all somehow touched this strange family. Elena cooked alongside Mrs. Chen, learning techniques she'd never bothered with before. Nathan actually took the day off, which his assistant claimed was a minor miracle. Sitting at that table, surrounded by noise and laughter and people who'd chosen to show up, Elena felt something shift. This was what she'd been looking for all along. Not perfection or fairy tales or rescue, just people who saw her and chose to stay anyway. After dinner, after everyone had left and the twins were sleeping off their food comas, Elena and Nathan cleaned up together. This was good, she said. Exhausting, but good. Sarah always wanted to host Thanksgiving, Nathan said quietly. But we were always traveling or I was working or something got in the way. She'd be glad we finally did it. Tell me about her, Elena said. Really tell me. Not just the summary version. So he did. He told Elena about meeting Sarah in college, about their terrible first date that somehow led to a second one, about how she'd wanted 6 kids and he'd wanted none, and they'd compromised on 2, about her terrible singing voice and her better sense of humor and how she'd made him laugh even when he was convinced nothing was funny. She sounds amazing, Elena said when he finished. She was. But she's gone, and you're here, and I'm learning that those things can both be true. He looked at Elena directly. I loved her. I still love her. But I'm also starting to love you, and that's okay too. Elena's breath caught. Nathan, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. He stood, stretched. I'm going to bed. Take your time processing. He left her in the kitchen with the truth hanging in the air. Elena sat there for a long time, thinking about train platforms and freezing nights, and the moment 2 little girls had stopped to notice her. About Nathan's initial reluctance and eventual trust. About Mrs. Chen's wisdom and the twins' acceptance, and all the small moments that had added up to something bigger. She'd spent so long believing she didn't deserve good things that she'd forgotten to notice when they showed up anyway. December arrived with the first real snow of the season. The twins demanded a snowman building competition, which devolved into a snowball fight that left everyone soaked and laughing. On Christmas Eve, after the girls were finally asleep and the presents were hidden, Elena and Nathan sat by the fireplace in comfortable silence. I have something for you, Nathan said, pulling out a small box. Nathan, we said no gifts. Ooh, this isn't a gift. It's a question. He opened the box to reveal a key. Move into the main house, not as staff, not as a temporary solution, as family. Elena stared at the key. The cottage becomes a studio, an art space, somewhere you can paint and create without anyone bothering you, but you'd sleep here, in the house, with us. He paused. If you want to. She thought about her small cottage, her independence, her carefully maintained boundaries. And then she thought about the twins calling her down for breakfast and Nathan leaving her coffee exactly how she liked it and being part of something instead of adjacent to it. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, I'll move in. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Nathan's relief was visible. When? After the holidays. Give me time to reorganize, figure out what goes where. Fair enough. He set the key in her hand. Merry Christmas, Elena. Merry Christmas. She moved in on New Year's Day, the twins helping her carry boxes and arguing about which bedroom should be hers. Not the master. That still felt wrong somehow. But the suite at the end of the hall, with windows overlooking the garden and space for all her art supplies. This is really happening, she said, standing in her new room surrounded by boxes. Is that okay? Nathan asked from the doorway. Yeah, it's okay. That night, the four of them made dinner together, a chaotic affair involving too many cooks and not enough coordination. They ate in the kitchen instead of the dining room, the twins telling increasingly elaborate stories about nothing. After the girls went to bed, Elena stood in the hallway outside her new room and tried to believe this was real. Nathan found her there. Having second thoughts? No, just first thoughts that I'm actually letting myself have. Such as I was homeless a year ago, and now I'm living in a mansion with a billionaire and his daughters, and somehow that's my life. Is it a good life? Elena thought about everything that had led here, the bad decisions and worse luck, the freezing platform and the twins who'd stopped, the slow rebuilding of everything she'd lost, the realization that being saved wasn't weakness, and asking for help didn't mean failure. Yeah, she said, it's a really good life. Nathan kissed her then, properly this time, not just a forehead brush, but something real. Elena kissed him back, letting herself feel it without fear. When they pulled apart, both of them slightly breathless, Nathan smiled. Should have done that sooner. Probably, but we got here eventually. We did. Spring came again, the gardens blooming with life that Mrs. Chen had carefully cultivated. The twins finished first grade with perfect attendance and only moderate disciplinary issues. Elena's teaching contract was renewed for another year. Nathan continued taking Fridays off and being present instead of absent. One warm evening in May, exactly a year after the train platform, Elena and Nathan sat on the patio while the twins played in the garden. I've been thinking, Elena said, about how none of this should have worked. Statistically, reasonably, logically, bringing home a homeless stranger should have been a disaster. And yet here we are. She watched the twins chase fireflies, their laughter carrying across the yard. I don't think I ever thanked them, the girls, for stopping that night. They'd probably just ask if you're making pancakes tomorrow. Fair point. She leaned against him, comfortable and easy. You know what the weirdest part is? I'm not waiting for it to fall apart anymore. I actually believe this is real. It is real. I know. It just took me a while to trust that. Nathan pulled her closer. I'm glad you stopped running. I'm glad you let me stay. The twins ran over, demanding attention for the 17 fireflies they'd supposedly counted. Elena helped them make a game of it, teaching them to be gentle with creatures that glowed. Later, after baths and bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, Elena stood in her room, her actual room in the main house, and thought about the year that had passed, about the woman who'd been freezing on a platform, convinced she'd lost everything, about the twins who'd seen past the dirt and desperation to the person underneath, about Nathan, who'd fought his every instinct to help a stranger and ended up finding a family again. She'd learned something important in that year, that rock bottom wasn't the end of the story, that sometimes the people who saved you were the ones you saved right back, that family wasn't always blood and home wasn't always where you started. Sometimes home was a mansion you'd never imagined being inside. Sometimes family was a grieving billionaire and his daughters and a housekeeper who'd become a friend. Sometimes saving yourself looked like accepting help from people who saw you when everyone else looked away. Elena climbed into bed, her bed in her room in her home, and fell asleep without nightmares. Down the hall, Nathan lay in his room and thought about the woman who'd changed everything by simply accepting an offer he'd almost been too afraid to make. And in their shared bedroom, Ava and Chloe slept peacefully, dreaming of fireflies and pancakes, and the person who'd stumbled into their lives on a freezing platform and decided to stay. The house settled around them, warm and full and alive in ways it hadn't been since Sarah died. Different, yes, but still a home, still a family, just one that had been broken and rebuilt and was learning to be whole again. Outside, the spring night pressed close, gentle and forgiving, the kind of night that promised tomorrow without making demands about how you got there. And on platform 7 at the city train station, other people waited in the cold, some with tickets to somewhere better, some just trying to survive until morning. Life went on there like it always had, indifferent to individual stories. But one woman who'd once sat shivering against a concrete pillar was no longer there. She was somewhere warm now, somewhere safe, somewhere she'd learned she belonged. And that, Elena had discovered, made all the difference.